Lies.
So today, a lot of big celebrities' Twitter pages were hacked. Bill Gates, Elon Musk, Barack Obama.
Deceit.
Our prototype didn't meet the criteria.
Cheating.
She will spend 18 years on probation.
While the internet has done a lot of good for the world, its anonymous nature has led to a lot of wrongdoing in terms of users deceiving others for their own financial gain. Today we'll dig deep into the most notorious of these cases. Be warned that this rabbit hole might start out tame, but will take some dark turns the deeper we go down. Our first story begins on the other side of the earth when a young man named Charlie Wade arrived in Perth, Australia, as part of a global backpacking trip. The 21-year-old Englishman was alone in an unfamiliar country, but he soon made a local connection when he met a woman online who went by the name Amelia. The two started talking actively on apps like Snapchat, with the attractive young woman gaining the young traveler's trust. As they learned more about each other, the potential sweetheart revealed that she was also from England and was studying close to Charlie's birthplace in Bath. The more they shared about their lives, the closer they grew. Their conversations soon turned intimate, and during one such exchange, Amelia suddenly asked Charlie to send a nude photo. He was surprised, but decided to throw caution to the wind and send the revealing pictures to her. But immediately after Amelia received the images, the Englishman quickly discovered that he was caught in a snafu. This is because she instantly sent messages back threatening to send the revealing pics to all of Charlie's Instagram followers. The only thing that would stop her was a €500 bribe. Charlie went through a whirlwind of emotions: shock, disappointment, and soon arrived at overwhelming fear. His instinctive reaction was to send the money to avoid the embarrassment, and he quickly attempted to do so. But fate intervened, and since the transaction was so large, it was rejected. This turned out to be lucky, as once the young man had time to clear his head, he realized that he wasn't as trapped as he thought. You see, Charlie hadn't shown his face in any of the illicit photos, so he decided to call Amelia or whoever was behind the fake profile on their bluff. Charlie blocked the account on all forms of social media, which they had shared over the course of their budding friendship. In the end, the scammer did end up sending the photos to a few of his acquaintances, who he quickly messaged to explain the situation. Rather than let this negative experience derail his trip, Charlie continued to travel around Australia, and started to share his story more openly as he got further away from it. He met several other young men who had gone through the same experience, and found out that other con artists would sometimes send the intimate photos out to the victim's family and friends, even if they paid. Some of these men had shelled out triple the amount that had been demanded of Charlie, but couldn't escape the threat of embarrassment that was dangled over them. Charlie shared that in the wake of his experience, he had completely stopped talking to new people online. Given how convincing a fake profile can be, it makes sense that the victims of such scams would want to keep their interactions rooted in real life afterwards. And sometimes the target of these scams are not as lucky as Charlie, and the fear, pressure, and stress can prove to be too much to handle. The tragic results can be found in cases like that of Ryan Last, a 17-year-old from San Jose, California. In May of 2022, just a few days after visiting some colleges that he was considering, the teen received a message from someone who he believed to be a girl around his age. The conversation quickly grew intimate, as the mysterious girl sent Ryan a nude photo and asked for one in return. Immediately after he sent the photo, the boy received a familiar demand for money in exchange for the images not being sent to his parents. The scammer was demanding $5,000, which Last was unable to pay. After some shrewd haggling, it was lowered to just $150, which the terrified teenager paid for out of his college savings. But even after sending the cash, the scammers kept demanding more and more, upping the pressure on Ryan until it overwhelmed him, and he only saw one way out. This tragedy unfolded over just a few hours. The boy's mother, Pauline, later shared that she had said goodnight to her son at 10 p.m., and by 2 a.m. the scam had come to a horrifying end. The teenager left a note behind, describing how embarrassed he was for himself and his family. Having been subjected to a level of stress that no one should have to endure, Ryan felt that he couldn't face any outcome of the situation. After writing his final message, the young man took his own life. It would take months for a culprit to be found, but eventually the internet footprints would be traced. In late December of the same year, a 25-year-old named Jonathan Cassie was arrested in connection to a West African financial extortion scheme that appeared to have targeted the late teenager, with a long prison sentence sure to ensue. This was just one of many sextortion cases plaguing the US. The FBI reported over 18,000 related complaints in 2021, with losses in excess of $13 million. Many of these complaints came from scammers who targeted children specifically, sharing and creating a seemingly bottomless well of illegal material to exploit their trust. But one of the main challenges facing the investigations of these crimes is that so many go unreported, with the victims choosing to endure the fear and shame in silence. The more drastic responses to being scammed, like what happened to Ryan last, is more common in teenagers because of their still developing brains. According to specialist Dr. Scott Hadlad, it can be difficult for the young victims of an extortion scam to see past the threat, to a point where the release of a nude photo would not have permanent ramifications on their social and personal lives. Hadlad stated that the best way for parents to help their children avoid the scams was to warn them without shame. When a young person is caught in what feels like a life-ruining moment, they need to know that they can talk to someone without facing further shame and justice. The more awareness that these scams get, the less power they can hold over the vulnerable people they target. But this is only the first of many Snapchat stories that we'll be discussing today. The rest will be shared after a brief word from our sponsor. Today's video is sponsored by my own company, 1UP, the definitive all-in-one face cream. To explain why I created this product, let's rewind back 2 years when I was looking to include a skincare regimen into my life, but found that the skincare industry was extremely confusing, with companies trying to upsell you with dozens of products. Not only was using all this expensive, but also time-consuming, which made me wonder why couldn't all of the best ingredients be put into one bottle that I can apply to my face once a day and then get on with my life. Surprisingly, what I was looking for didn't really seem to exist, so I assembled a team to design the product I am now holding, which I'm quite proud of. This cream packs quite a punch and includes a plethora of ingredients to moisturize, boost, strengthen, protect, and tone your skin. So if you're looking for a straightforward way to self-improve and help your skin for decades to come, I suggest clicking the link down below and trying it for yourself. And if you use my promo code GFM at checkout, you'll receive free shipping on your order. In June of 2022, when realtor Chloe Kroll met a man on Snapchat, their conversation began casually, but one day he made a surprising request. He asked if Chloe could send him $1,000, which he claimed he would be able to flip into a much larger amount. Although she later admitted that she found the request sketchy, Chloe agreed to send just $100 to start, warning her new friend that she would come find him if he tried to pull anything. Her suspicions were soon confirmed. Immediately after the man received the money, he blocked Chloe on all of social media and disappeared. But rather than sit with the loss, the woman decided to follow through on her warning and began to do a deep dive into social media to track down whoever was behind the account that had scammed her. Her search lasted deep into the night, and she eventually came across people who knew the criminal. All of them backed him up and tried to push Chloe off his trail, but she continued to dig. Eventually, she was able to track down a person who knew her scammer's surname, which led her to his extended family's online profiles. Searching through these mysterious relatives, she was soon able to get her hands on addresses and a phone number, which she used to reach out to a still unnamed relative of her scammer. This person, who kept her connection to the man private, told Chloe that their mutual contact had been stealing from everyone, including family, and that she had received messages about this behavior before. Chloe shared her plan to confront the man and retrieve her money, and his relative told her exactly where he would be. The real estate agent went directly to the scammer's front door. But when she knocked, his mother was the one who answered. As soon as Chloe introduced herself and explained the situation, the older woman started to scream for her son, who came to the front door and was shocked to find his victim standing there. The women started to berate the young man together and were soon joined by his grandmother. Once the cacophony of anger died down, the scammer and his former victim came to an agreement. He would send the money back to her over Cash App within the next 3 hours. She left the house and later received her money, along with an apologetic text message the next day. Chloe later shared her story with the world through TikTok, accumulating over 278,000 views and leaving many viewers impressed by her amateur detective work. Her story gave many people a platform to discuss their own similar experiences, and some commenters even asked if Chloe could help them recover the money they had lost. Although she never took any of them up on their offers, her story remains a strong example that scammers can sometimes bend as easily as their victims when they're pushed on the same personal level. Ever since its release to the general public in 2006, Facebook has been one of the most popular social media sites in the world. Even with the rise of competitors, Mark Zuckerberg's platform still holds the crown, hosting billions of users every month. In recent years, though, it has received a bit of a stigma as a space primarily used for boomers. Seeing as this is a demographic well known for being susceptible to scams, it should not come as a shock that Facebook has become a popular breeding ground for malicious users. This leads us to their marketplace platform, a space where people can buy and sell used items within their community. Unfortunately, this also is one of the easiest systems to exploit by scammers, seeing as anyone can create a listing for an item even if they don't own it. This is exactly what happened in June of 2023, when a Samsung washer and dryer set was put up for sale for the low price of $250. This was a thrilling discovery for online bargain hunters, who quickly contacted the seller and set up a time and place to pick up their appliances. But when they arrived, these would-be buyers were sorely disappointed. The woman who answered the door, Katie Bennett, stated that she had no idea what they were talking about. While this at first might have been brushed off as a simple mistake, over the next few days, more and more people began ringing Katie's doorbell with the same request. Many of these unwanted visitors had even paid for their items in advance. What had happened was this: an unknown Facebook user had created the listing in order to scam people and chose Katie's address seemingly at random. Every time the lie was discovered, they would simply remove their item for sale, only to put it right back up somewhere else not long after. As for Katie, over the following months, she received over 40 visits from Facebook shoppers, who had all been duped by the same con. It became so bad that she was forced to put signs in her yard and by her front door informing people that she had no washer and dryer. While police have begun an investigation, no suspects have been tracked down as of writing. In other cases of fraud on the social media service, though, the perpetrators have been brought to justice. For example, in July of 2023, a Facebook user in Louisiana became suspicious after purchasing a used truck on the marketplace. The buyer noticed that the VIN number in the window had been swapped out, and the factory label was still on the doorframe. Upon further investigation, they also discovered another very similar truck for sale in the area. All of this evidence led to the customer alerting authorities that the vehicle was stolen. After this discovery, police quickly set to work on a sting operation to catch those responsible. They contacted the sellers of the second truck and arranged a time to purchase it. 2 people ended up being arrested for the crime: Gabrielle Rostrin and Elvis Munoz. In fact, Rostrin herself had actually been arrested in Texas earlier that year for a very similar crime, and she had been attempting to sell her stolen vehicles out of the state to avoid further detection. The duo were indicted on charges such as theft and injuring public records. But items aren't the only things being falsely advertised on Facebook. In 2023, a woman by the name of Rebecca Webster was searching the internet for potential summer vacation destinations. What needs to be understood is that Rebecca was confined to a wheelchair, and thus required a spot that was able to accommodate her needs. After scouring the internet, she finally stumbled upon a listing which was advertised in a Facebook group for disabled-friendly vacations. On the surface, what she found seemed perfect: a luxurious villa located in France that was completely wheelchair accessible. The woman quickly contacted the man who had made the listing, identified only as James, and expressed interest in renting the villa for her family. The two hit it off quite well, as James went into great detail talking about how he had personally renovated the entire home for the benefit of his mother who suffered from multiple sclerosis. After a few days of this correspondence, Rebecca felt comfortable enough to work with James, transferring him a down payment of £370. But Rebecca then started to become suspicious around a week later when she began seeing rumblings in the Facebook group. According to multiple people, he was nothing more than a con man who had been selling time at the villa for severely disabled clients, while in reality having no actual ownership of the property. Disturbed by these allegations, Rebecca reached out to James in order to confront him. By that point though, it was too late. The supposed villa owner blocked her on every form of communication they had established and disappeared into the night, never to be heard from again. The disabled woman was left with no legal recourse to reclaim her lost money, with her only option being to speak with various news sources in order to make sure James was unable to scam anyone else. A spokesperson for the social media site expressed their sympathies for the Webster family and claimed that James' account had been terminated. Abraham Mohammed, better known by his online moniker It's Slicker, is an Arabic Twitch streamer from the United Kingdom. Originally gaining popularity through appearing on live streams hosted by the Austin Show on Twitch, Slicker managed to accrue his own dedicated fan base during the year of 2019, amassing just under 200,000 followers on the platform. Commonly streaming games such as CSGO, as well as just chatting, he'd continue to keep building an online presence, eventually reaching 430,000 followers by 2022. But while things look great on the outside, Abraham would eventually find himself in hot water with both fans and peers alike. It all started to go downhill on September 17th, 2022, when a video was leaked by Twitch user Michael P. of Slicker requesting money from fans after allegedly being locked out of his bank account for the last 3 to 4 days. In fear of his credit score dropping, Slicker resorted to asking for donations, promising he'd pay back anyone he borrowed money from within the next 2 months.
They got locked out and I was looking for people that actually work and that I could ask if I could borrow from, and I'll pay back. Genuinely, give me 2 months and I can pay back.
The video would then be reposted to the livestream fail subreddit by the user Days End at Dusk, where it would immediately gain even more attention. Under the post, another Redditor would share additional Discord logs between Slicker and fans requesting funds for various reasons, including paying bills and buying a plane ticket for his mother. All would follow the same manuscript. The streamer would typically ask for their age, check if they had a form of income, and then proceed to ask them for any donations they could contribute. It appeared Slicker would also send similar videos to the one linked in the original post, all following close to the same dialogue. In special instances, if people denied Slicker money, he'd pull out a real document from Bluestone Credit Management as evidence to supposedly prove that he was facing troubles paying his taxes.
So he said, I got you on my mama. He refused again. So Slicker sent him a document from Bluestone Credit Management in order to show how much he was in trouble or whatever. Like,
Reddit user OpposedDog would also go on to recount their own experience with Slicker, saying, quote, he uses sympathy tactics to manipulate his viewers, saying he has tax problems / his parents need help, and that he would promise to pay back your money with a bit more in a short time. He still hasn't paid people back. At this point, I doubt he cares, as he's stolen a lot of money, roughly 100 to 200k. Following the release of the Reddit post, multiple big Twitch creators stepped forward to share their account of being scammed by him, including the likes of Ludwig, Trainwrecks, and Justaminx.
He just said he was in a super urgent need. He sent me a bunch of screenshots of like a bank account.
I thought it was only me he was asking money from.
I know.
With all this information finally coming to light, it begged the question, where was the money that Abraham collected from these victims going? Well, people wouldn't have to wait too long to get their answer. On September 18th, 2022, Slicker would go live on Twitch to address the allegations made against him. But instead of denying the claims, he instead admitted to scamming money from streamers and fans to fund his crippling gambling addiction, which began with CSGO skins, and eventually evolved into actual money, getting to the point where he gambled away all of his Twitch earnings. Slicker's original intention was to use the money he collected to wager more and pay off further debts, but of course that never happened as he went deeper into to the hole he dug himself into. But since the jig was up, there was no way out. He had no choice but to publicly apologize to those who were affected by his actions, promising to finally right his wrongs, even if it took him, quote, until he was 90. That same day, following Slicker's own livestream, he would also appear on air with fellow Twitch users Hassan Piker and Miskif, where they'd confront and interrogate him. This is where it was brought to light that one of the more notable victims revealed by the original logs who allegedly sent Slicker over $7,000 was someone who was going through chemo treatment. Even with the stunning display of generosity, Abraham still proceeded to press this individual for more and more money, despite knowing their cancer diagnosis.
Did Slicker pay you back?
No.
No.
How much does he owe you?
7K, I think.
CoffeeZilla would drop a video on September 19th, 2022, documenting all the potential victims of Slicker, alleging that over 55 people had been scammed out of an estimated $384,000. But thankfully, this story does have a happy ending, as all the victims of the gambling-addicted streamer would be paid back what they were rightfully owed thanks to Ludwig and XQC. Slicker's actions would also have a ripple effect across Twitch as a whole, as not too long after these events unfolded, the platform officially banned the streaming of unlicensed gambling sites, specifically those that dealt in cryptocurrency. But this is unfortunately only one of many nefarious schemes Twitch streamers have come up with over the years. Aiden Ross is among the most notable and controversial streamers of the last few years, receiving multiple bans on Twitch and being part of the first wave of major online personalities to move to Kick. He's no doubt a key player in the streaming space in spite of his less than stellar reputation. While originally considered a brand risk by Kick upon first signing to the platform, he'd go on to shatter their user numbers, amassing an audience of over 300,000 at the peak of one of his broadcasts. Streaming records aside though, Aiden also hasn't been shy about his interest in cryptocurrency, with his Ethereum wallet having seen well over $35 million in assets pass through it. But a look through the history of where this money came from reveals some dubious sources. The controversy we'll look into today first ignited when Aiden did a sponsored stream on May 26, 2021, promoting a coin known as MILF token to his, at the time, 75,000 live viewers, with the subsequent now deleted tweet being made announcing a giveaway of $10,000 worth of the coins to one lucky viewer. However, following the campaign, the cryptocurrency's value would plummet by a staggering 94% in just a few short days. To make matters worse, Ross would go on to make light of the situation live on air.
Chat, by the way, that MILF token I did a while back, I already told you guys don't buy that shit. I got paid a bag to do that shit. Like, I don't give a f. I hope none of you guys actually bought it.
Following the allegations of being involved in a potential pump and dump scheme, Aiden would later be interviewed on the H3 podcast, where he'd shed some light on the situation. While he did admit to being paid roughly $200,000 to promote the coin, he defended himself by referring to the promotion as a really bad promo. So bad in fact that the token's price significantly dropped, claiming that if it was intended as a pump and dump, it didn't work. Later on though, the YouTube crypto scam sleuth CoffeeZilla would soon reveal a crucial insight that would cripple Aiden's defense. He argued that the impact of the MILF token promotion was more about the trading volume rather than the coin's price, benefiting those who wanted to exit their positions. On the day Aiden did the sponsorship, the token saw $19 million more in trading volume. In other words, the plan worked perfectly in allowing certain individuals to profit. This incident happened in the wake of a growing trend of influencers engaging in cryptocurrency schemes on platforms like Twitch and YouTube, with other examples including Save the Kids token, backed by the likes of RiceGum and former FaZe Clan members, and Logan Paul's infamous Crypto Zoo. But cryptocurrency is not the last of many methods that certain streamers have used to wring money out of their unsuspecting audiences. Julian, better known as Anis13K, was a popular French Twitch streamer with over 80,000 followers, who was best known for his gambling and charity streams he'd host in support of the French Association of Multiple Sclerosis, an organization that treats patients who suffer from MS, a serious disease in which the immune system eats away at the protective covering of nerves. Julian would do 4 of these charity broadcasts in total, raising more than 10,000 euros. This cause was very close to his heart, as his father was suffering from the same disease. While Julian had been collecting donations from his viewers under this guise, the actual truth of where the money was going would soon come to light. Some viewers became suspicious when they pointed out after each charity stream, Julian's lifestyle would seemingly become more lavish. And on December 30th, 2019, an anonymous Twitter user by the name of Reveal Truth would expose the French broadcaster in an extensive thread pointing out various instances of him allegedly lying about where the donations he was collecting were going. More notably, the user would share a recording of a call with the AFSEP, in which they revealed that they never received anything from Anis13K. In the same thread, they would share a tweet made by Julian claiming that as of 2019, at least 5,000 euros was raised and donated to the charity, sharing screenshots of the organization's donation page as proof. But Reveal Truth would point out the fact that the actual amount donated was never actually shown. To many onlookers, this was definitive proof that none of the supposed money ever reached its intended destination. Faced with an overwhelming amount of evidence against him, Julian would take to Twitch on January 2nd, 2020, where he admitted his guilt and explained the reasons behind his actions. During the 26-minute broadcast, he confessed that he had not made the right decision, and that while at first he didn't have any ulterior motives, envy of other successful streamers had driven him to misuse the donations. In other words, Julian expressed his regret by saying, "The first year when I organized a charity marathon, I did it without any ulterior motives. I really wanted to donate the money to the association, but besides that I had trouble with money, tax problems, credit problems. When this amount of money came in, it crossed my mind and I didn't make the right choice. The following year, I did the same. I saw the other streamers' progress on Twitch. They had crazy gear and everything, and I wasn't jealous, but I was envious." He additionally noted that since the time of the post coming out, he'd made contact with AFSEP in an attempt to make amends and find a way to finally pay them their dues. President of the organization, Jocelyn Nouvegier, who was made aware of the scandal just a few days after Julian's confession, would comment publicly on the matter. She stated she felt embarrassed about the whole thing, and was currently weighing the pros and cons when it comes to prosecution. While admitting that Julian made contact with her, she still had doubts that he'd actually follow through on his promise of repaying the organization. The same day, the official AFSEP Twitter account would also comment publicly. "Thank you to the entire Twitch community for supporting us with Anis13K. We know that this in no way represents the goodwill of French streamers. Thank you from the bottom of my heart, from the volunteers of the association as well as from all our members. Strength to you." The details become a little murky after the events of the scandal. While Anis13K was banned on Twitch just 4 days after he admitted his guilt, he'd still continue to stream on other platforms like YouTube occasionally, before stopping in early 2022 and privating all of his content. Darren Watkins Jr., better known online by his persona IShowSpeed, needs almost no introduction, boasting over 20 million subscribers and being the largest streamer across all of YouTube. He's made quite a name for himself on the internet, to the point where most people in the online space are aware of his existence even if they don't watch his content. Infamous for his melodramatic rages and freakouts, he has also been no stranger to controversy throughout his relatively short time in the spotlight. On November 16th, 2022, Speed would do a sponsored stream dedicated to promoting the crypto and NFT project known as Paradox Metaverse, a blockchain-based video game. Some viewers immediately became suspicious when they saw the campaign was backed by individuals such as Emilio Talio, and Faisal Tariq, crypto enthusiasts previously accused and criticized for allegedly shady business practices. To make the story even stranger, this broadcast was originally promoted by Speed as the live stream where he'd finally meet his idol, world-renowned soccer player Cristiano Ronaldo. But when viewers tuned in, Speed's guest turned out to be a Ronaldo lookalike wearing a shirt promoting Paradox. Viewers quickly became furious with Speed after being misled, and began to spam that he was a scammer and a sellout in the live chat. In an attempt to remedy the situation, the young streamer would temporarily mute his mic while he tried to figure out his next steps. Unbeknownst to him though, the microphone had not actually been shut off. While Speed would later try to delete the stream VOD and any associated clips, the damage had already been done. Re-uploads would spread like wildfire across YouTube and subreddits such as livestream fails for everyone to see. Following the events, viewers would continue to press Speed in his live chat, calling him a scammer, leading him to become very frustrated with the situation. He would later address the claims by apologizing and indirectly admitting regret for taking the Paradox deal, saying he made a mistake. Some viewers chose to forgive Darren for his actions in this situation, seeing as he was only 17 years old at the time, but many others claimed that his age was irrelevant. At his size, he had a responsibility to use his platform ethically. While many Twitch creators who are exposed for scamming their audiences are the people who already have massive followings, there have been some less well-known individuals who have also cooked up nefarious schemes, such as the case with the streamer known as Ali. Amassing a smaller follower count of just a little over 13k, she mainly streams the game Path of Exile, a free-to-play online RPG, which is where her alleged scams took place. You see, in the Path of Exile community, it's very common for viewers to let streamers gamble their in-game cards for them on stream purely to see their reactions and boost engagement. If the content creator wins, the cards will be returned to the fan who donated them. If they lose, the cards are lost. On September 19th, 2023, while streaming some Path of Exile card gambling, Ali would trade with a viewer named LF4Leechers in order to gamble. After the risk paid off and the rare items were acquired, however, Ali would only give the subscribers some of their items back, keeping the missing items as payment for their carrying out the service.
I will take one as payment for using Ali's services. Thank you. Here, the payment is one apothecary for free mage blood.
Afterward, she would list the subscribers' valuables on the Forbidden Trove, a marketplace where Path of Exile players can buy, sell, and trade in-game goods. The clip of Ali taking the card was uploaded to the Path of Exile subreddit, where it received almost 4,000 upvotes, with the community collectively turning against her for her actions. Ali would leave a reply on the post by claiming that she had only ever taken cards from two people, the original victim, LF4Leechers, and her friend Alex. She went on to state that, in both instances, they were okay with it, claiming that the former, LF4Leechers, had backtracked. Having just woken up from her nap when the drama spread across the community, she immediately reached out to the victims apologizing and explaining her side of it all, offering to give the card back if they so wanted. But the victim refused, stating that the hate she was now receiving was the justice for her actions. Ali would end her post by saying she was sorry for the way things played out, and that because of the situation being brought into the public eye, she was now receiving death threats from various Path of Exile fans. This is a common trope for online creators that are trying to avoid full accountability. In the eyes of the community, this did little to fix the situation, and the over 1,000 downvotes her post received clearly reflected that. In the aftermath, while Ali was not banned on Twitch, she would be permabanned, blacklisted, and unpartnered on the Forbidden Trove, after an investigation found her guilty of stealing on numerous other occasions, with people in her own circle testifying that events like these happened quite frequently, but no one spoke out about it due to her influence in the community. Georgie Karam, better known as PokeLols, is a Canadian Twitch streamer and content creator. Beginning his career in 2013, he gained popularity through playing games such as League of Legends and Overwatch. Having over 1.1 million followers and joining the well-known esports organization Team Solo Mid in 2020, he's no doubt made a name for himself in both the gaming and live stream space. Prior to this though, Georgie was formerly a part of the well-known creator group Offline TV back in 2017. 2017, where a series of events would occur that would cause him to develop a great disdain towards the organization. On June 19th, 2023, during a live stream, Pokey would share the story of why he parted ways with Offline TV. Describing it as a movie story, he recounted how his American visa expired while he was a part of the group and living in their house. With only a few months left to legally stay in the country, Pokey would travel back to his hometown in Canada with the intention of returning to Los Angeles in a month for BlizzCon, and he requested that OTV keep his spot in the meantime, to which they agreed. However, upon his return to LA, Pokey would find that OTV had not only seemingly revoked his spot in the group with no prior notice, but had also given his room to Disguised Toast, another Twitch streamer. Pokey expressed his immense frustration, feeling betrayed by the organization he considered family, especially given his young and relatively new status in the industry. This wouldn't be the only allegation of Offline TV taking advantage of Georgie either. Earlier in 2020, during a broadcast on the Soda Poppin' channel, the Scorn streamer had talked about how, after leaving his former group and moving to TSM, he discovered that the organization had used his name to secure sponsorships, specifically with the computer company HTC. With these claims in hand, Georgie expressed frustration with how OTV had seemingly profited off his name without his consent, calling it a scam. This was during the height of Pokey's popularity, having struck big by being one of the first major streamers to play VR chat with his audience. Businesses like HTC were looking to partner with creators in the virtual reality space, which OTV decided to take advantage of by pretending to still be associated with Pokey. This thereby prevented the streamer himself from being able to secure his own deal with HTC when he reached out to them. While Georgie didn't give a specific timeline for these events while recounting the story, they seem to have taken place in early 2018, as HTC's sponsorship announcement with Offline TV was posted on their YouTube channel in May of that year. Still, it's worth noting that the current management at Offline TV was not responsible for these actions, and Pokey clarified that the situation occurred with the organization's previous management, Chris Chan, not that one, an individual who had been accused of sexual assault by other Offline TV members, among other things. What if there was an island full of dedicated users of Reddit? It sounds like a utopia, at least it did to much of their user base. Talks of Reddit Island date as far back as 2010. The idea was simple: to populate a remote sanctuary with only Redditors. Given how expensive such a purchase would be, it may seem completely unfeasible. Yet hundreds of users were determined to make it a reality. The project was seen as a chance to create a society free from the plight of stupidity. This idyllic civilization would include weed farms, on-site data centers, and ecotourism. It was so enticing that it survived as prospects soared into the multi-millions. By 2012, the dream proved persistent enough to receive a profile on Gawker. Of course, that was before they realized the actual dollar amount was just the start of their troubles. Their sights were set on Current Island, located just off the coast of the Bahamas. This required careful navigation of their complex political climate. Mark Wells, the self-appointed leader, was unable to handle that responsibility. He would end up having to profusely apologize to get another phone call, only to be rejected once more. The author surmises, "There are few places on Earth I could imagine wanting to spend time less than a remote island populated solely by hundreds of hardcore users of the social news site Reddit. Forget the island, dude, launch a startup." The effort failed for another 4 years before being abandoned. While one would expect this to mark the end, that shockingly couldn't be further from the truth. In fact, Reddit Island would pick up traction again over 5 years later. On April 30th, 2021, a post was made to our memes. If Redditors wanted to, they could join together and buy an island for a meme. The image received over 32,000 upvotes, sparking a site-wide trend. As discussions flooded popular communities, they eventually created a new subreddit called Reddit_Island. It amassed over 25,000 members across the span of 3 days. Now, most of that activity was in jest, evident by the spread of laughably bad suggestions. For example, listing the official language as Memeglish and declaring their allegiance to Keanu Reeves. There was even a push to rename it to Meme Island in hopes of attracting Elon Musk. But in the midst of this ridicule were genuine attempts to organize. That culminated on May 25th, when the community was introduced to its savior, He came on a fresh account called Island Owner Alt. I've been reading about your attempts to buy either an island or town, and I think I might be able to help you guys out. I own a small island, about 120 acres, that my grandfather purchased about 40 years ago. As of right now, I only have a small cabin built on it, and it's been a dream of mine to build a community there for several years now. If you guys are willing to help fund any construction or legal costs, I'd be happy to help set up a self-sufficient society of Redditors there. Please DM me if you're interested, mods. Immediately, the stranger was given moderator status and labeled an official board member. The sub was jammed with people hailing him as a messiah. That heightened after he made a second post affirming it would happen. He revealed that it would be located off Cuba and outlined a variety of investments necessary for the project. If anyone would like to chip in with the costs, my PayPal is as follows. Any amount is much appreciated. Donors will have their usernames engraved on a plaque to commemorate their contributions. In total, the man received $700 in donations. Though his proposal was met with overwhelming support, there was reason for concern. He appeared reluctant to provide any specific information. This forced the community to craft plans off speculation alone. The most popular theory named the island Cayo Rabi Horcado. It was covered in trees which would have to be cut down. This became the foundation for a long list of issues that were to be addressed early on. Unfortunately for them, the plan would never get that far. Initially, the island owner was able to quell fears by posting beach photos to his profile. They were unique and didn't appear anywhere else online, but that was only a temporary relief. To ensure he was telling the truth, they demanded to see proof. This led him to post a copy of the deed. It was convincing enough on its face to garner hundreds of upvotes, yet upon scrutiny, several inconsistencies became apparent. The text was written in 2 languages, with the title in Spanish but the body in English. The latter was filled with spelling errors. The coordinates listed were off, leading to a random field in India. However, the smoking gun came from those familiar with the country's laws. He's asking for donations to PayPal, which is not approved for use in Cuba, so he's at least working with someone in the States. It is difficult to send money from the States to Cuba. It has to be done via Western Union and must be picked up by a Cuban national. Western Union is not working anymore in Cuba. This is a scam. To state the obvious, it was a mistake to accept the man with open arms. He used his newly appointed powers to silence criticism. Critics were forced to seek refuge in a new sub, which he then visited to defend himself. This lasted an entire day until the backlash finally caught the attention of mods. He was unceremoniously banned with the decision made known in a PSA. They called for anyone who donated to file chargebacks. The next day, a private exchange was posted by a donor. Is it true? Have we been fooled? Yep, you got scammed big time. Sick. Have an absolutely horrible day. While his scheme completely unraveled, it was clear the jig was up. Because of this, the swindler started mocking his victims openly. He wrote on the aforementioned bunker, "Thanks for your money, suckers." Following this, the account was suspended, with it being unclear if the funds were ever returned. Most have come to accept that he got away with it, completely unpunished. The controversy was quick to escape Reddit and go viral. It became the subject of a YouTube video that has amassed nearly 2 million views. This earned it a legacy as one of the site's most embarrassing moments. With that said, this still isn't the end of the story. A year later, one of the original planners returned after almost a decade. His name was Crypto Don, and he'd spent the past 5 years in prison. He claimed it was for trying to create a free society in the Republic of Honduras. Now that he was free, he intended to revive Reddit Island as a nation run on cryptocurrency. It was described as a libertarian approach, with bizarre plans to set up an oil rig. That discussion continues to this day, with later ideas including a television deal to provide residents a source of income. Even with official endorsements from the board, it's been met with mixed reception. There aren't many hopes left to dash, with the sub losing 8,000 members since the island owner incident. Though it's unclear if this effort is earnest, given its decade-long failure, most have come to view Reddit Island as a bygone dream. One of Reddit's most popular communities is Ask Me Anything, abbreviated as IAMA. While the most famous are celebrities, it allows anyone to take questions from the World Wide Web. That was the case on December 9th, 2016, when a user named Craftistic shared his story. The man explained that he'd recently been evicted and was now homeless. This left him stranded in the streets of Calgary, where the winter hit depths of negative 25 degrees. I have no family, so I'll likely be calling a shelter. I've been out searching for days for work. The sympathetic tale went viral as the thread was flooded with support. Those from the area offered food and clothing, while others sent upwards of $150 directly. They even set up a GoFundMe which raised over $300. It was a rare display of generosity amongst strangers, so much so that the story made local headlines to celebrate goodwill amidst the holidays. But as you can guess, not everything was as it seemed. The first hint of this came after Craftistic declined a local job offer. His excuse was that he wanted to stay closer to his parents, an odd response given that he previously said he had no family. Then they realized certain details didn't line up. In his original post, the man claimed to sleep outside and warm up in shops. That was contradicted in a comment where he spoke about moving out later that day. This meant he'd been homeless for less than 12 hours, casting doubt on his heartfelt answers about life. I appreciate the little things. A meal, a smile, and hugs. 3 weeks earlier, the man referenced having a roommate. They were so close that they discussed collecting adult films together. This, as well as his habitual use of drugs, were omitted from his recount. These disparities prove that he couldn't be taken at his word. But it wasn't long after that they found indisputable proof. Further digging revealed he'd been playing games and uploading videos at the exact same time as the AMA. This revelation spread rapidly. Those hurt by his betrayal spammed it across the comments section. Rather than address the outrage, Craftistic silently deleted the post. He then ghosted donors entirely. The only update they received came a month later to promote a new fundraiser. When asked about his absence, he made vague claims of harassment. It was a pitiful attempt at denial. Yet, due to the site's short attention span, most were quick to forget about the ordeal. The scheme went unnoticed at large as the fraudster got off scot-free. That is, at least, until the efforts of Just Insane 207. The Redditor donated after relating to his own experience in Calgary. The ruse enraged him enough to leave 30 replies on the original thread. While most would have given up there, he continued for months, going so far as to harass the man's family. I found his Facebook page, screenshotted his GoFundMe page, and sent it to about 20 of his friends, including what I think is his mommy and daddy. In February of 2017, Craftistic left a comment in an adult sub called Hot Chicks with Tattoos. Just Insane saw this as a chance to levy new accusations. Craftistic steals from innocent Redditors and is a pedophile. He's been lying, saying he's been homeless and staying in a shelter. He had some phony proof that he used to set up a GoFundMe to rip people off. To be clear, there appears to be no evidence the scammer abused minors. Regardless, it caused enough of a stir to be documented on drama subreddits. The sheer absurdity of this interaction led users to investigate further. Many came away feeling it was justified, having no sympathy for the conman. Others viewed it as an example of why these performative gestures were meaningless. I have no sympathy for people who get bilked out of donations to a fake homeless guy on Reddit. There are lots of homeless people you could actually help by donating your time or money to a local organization. But no, you blindly gave your money to some stranger who, big surprise, turned out to be a liar. Though it brought fresh eyes on the situation, in the end, this too was fruitless. There was never any serious punishment for Craftistic, with his account remaining active to this very day. Random Acts of Christmas was created in 2011 to encourage the spirit of giving. It was built on the premise of writing to Santa for gifts. That role was filled by volunteers who helped make dreams come true. The event was a success, providing the less fortunate with gifts and necessities. It became an instant tradition with the achievement paraded across the platform. Naturally, it was set to be even bigger as the holidays approached a year later. The first attracted less than 1,000 people. That grew to over 3,000 in 2012. The exposure was a double-edged sword though. On the one hand, there was more love to share around. On the other, there was an increased likelihood for potential abuse. This takes us to a post from December 10th, 2012. It was written by Dignan2, a single father from Texas named Kevin Rogers in real life. For the past 2 months, Kevin and his 7-year-old kid Jennifer were homeless. They lived at a shelter sharing a single family room. With hardly any belongings and no income, there was no chance of buying his daughter a gift. That is, until he got directed to the sub. His letter was so well written that it touched the hearts of thousands. It amassed over 1,400 upvotes as they struck out her Amazon wish list line by line. One user was generous enough to order 12 different items. Now already there were some red flags. The page lists over 50 products, which is strange for any child, and nonetheless one in poverty. They also found a separate list on the account with books about ecstasy. But it was only as they reached the bottom that suspicions truly arose. For every wish that was fulfilled, a new one was being added. This already was in poor taste, but those additions included several game consoles and gift cards in increments of 50. It rubbed people the wrong way, with some deciding to back out entirely. That's when they noticed a series of links buried at the bottom of the thread. You see, Kevin had used the same username on other sites, leading someone to recognize him. This led to a comment within the first 8 hours exposing his past. I feel bad for all the folks here on Reddit that don't know about Kevin's past. This guy is basically a total loser who has selfishly decided that he will take away any chance of a normal future for his daughter, so that he can use her as a charity point as he continually refuses any kind of opportunity at a real job. He is a deadbeat that considers eBay arbitrage and occasional price gouging of electronics a steady living suitable for raising a young daughter. The community in question was a gaming-related site called Shack News. While the user provides links, most are no longer available in full. Because of this, only a portion of the original context exists. The following is based on the remaining information to the best of our abilities. It all started in November of 2006, shortly after the release of the Wii. At the time, Kevin posted under the username Zigzag32. The Wii notoriously suffered a 3-year shortage due to the sheer level of demand. He decided to capitalize on this by purchasing several consoles to resell for a profit. This type of scalping is controversial and led him to face backlash on the forum. Kevin first defended his actions as harmless, yet as the hate continued, his defense slowly shifted towards his daughter. Yeah, I'm a douche because I sold some Wiis to buy my daughter Christmas presents. I needed money for myself. I've been living hand to mouth after she was born and got laid off before Christmas. This did little to stop the criticism, which continued well into February of 2008. It got to the point that Kevin kept a public list of enemies, subjecting himself to further mockery. After a nasty exchange, he abandoned the account, returning as Dignan a few weeks later. It was under this alias that he vented more frequently about his personal woes, many of those centered around his domestic life. Jennifer was born in 2005. Her mother was described as a loser drunk who left when she was only 6 months old. This forced Kevin to raise the child alone. To make matters worse, that was while being a newly convicted felon. Kevin had been arrested 3 months prior for second-degree aggravated assault. I broke Jennifer's mom's jaw as she was trying to push her, strapped in a stroller, into 35-mile-per-hour traffic. I caught her as the front tire had crested the curb from the sidewalk. I was convicted on witness statements from 2 lesbians that were passing by and saw her bleeding. They followed us home and told the police. Needless to say, it was 100% bullshit, but the state runs with anything. He later claimed to have barely grazed her chin. Kevin was sentenced to 3 years probation, but found it difficult to find work. This ended up being the final push for him to become a full-time dad, staying with his parents and living off of savings. Those savings included a video game collection worth over 10 grand, which he peeled away from for money. It was comfortable, though the peace didn't last. He first ended up in legal trouble after his ex committed fraud. Her actions resulted in an investigation that prevented them from getting Medicaid. In spring of 2009, a warrant was put out for his arrest. He skipped a probation meeting to take care of his daughter while she was sick. This led him to receive a new parole officer who hated him. By then, the money was becoming tight, which was unfortunate given Jennifer's upcoming birthday. It was those hard times that marked the first time he reached out for help. He posted both his phone number and an address for a P.O. box. While this was received positively, that kindness eroded as more requests were made. Every time there was an explanation for why the issues in his life weren't his fault. It seemed beyond reason, which led them to scrutinize his posts. For example, Kevin claimed to have quit smoking once Jennifer was born. Yet his Reddit showed frequent activity in marijuana communities, even giving advice on how to obtain it illegally. Back in the day, he claimed to have only sold 8 weeds. In 2008, he gloated about making over $10,000 from the scheme. Not only that, but it may have been done through questionable means. He referenced being detained at several different Walmarts over the years. That was while attempting to sell vouchers and registration keys. Those reading between the lines have alleged he was opening software boxes to steal these codes. But without hard proof, this can only be chalked up to speculation. By now, it was clear that his words couldn't be taken at face value. Unfortunately, that leads to the most tragic aspect of the story, which is that his living situation was true. Kevin was evicted after a dispute with his mother in late 2010. Ever since, they were living in the Bay Area homeless services. The argument that he was a scammer wasn't from flat-out falsehoods, but an inability to take responsibility. For example, paying for a lap dance at a strip club while in financial ruin. This was acknowledged by a Shack moderator who commented on Reddit. He absolutely has a daughter, and I don't doubt for a second he's in that shelter. He just makes poor choice after poor choice and uses his daughter as a sob story. He's been begging and being a loser for over 10 years now. Nobody takes him seriously and nobody helps him on our site. It's like a train wreck, and unfortunately his little girl is going to suffer eventually. Kevin received so much backlash that Shack News briefly went offline due to the traffic. His thread reversed to the negatives as people canceled their gifts. This caused him to leave hundreds of comments explaining himself. His main defense was that he technically hadn't said anything untrue. That was while still insisting everything was someone else's fault. Shockingly, the biggest platform he received would be ABC News. They interviewed Kevin and confirmed he'd been homeless for 2 months. He was quoted as stating they only asked for educational arts and crafts toys. In spite of this blatant lie, the shelter vouched that he was ultimately a good dad. They then assured that regardless of the controversy, the 7-year-old would still have a Merry Christmas thanks to efforts from the local community. At the very least, things worked out in the end for everyone involved. Those who donated were made aware of the facts in time to make an educated decision. Jennifer got to celebrate the holidays regardless of her father's actions. And thankfully, random acts of Christmas survived the controversy, continuing every year to this very day. Reddit's most unique feature is that it allows anyone to create a community. The site hosts forums for all sorts of different hobbies and interests. That brings us to the San Pedro cactus. This cactus produces a psychedelic compound, making it popular among drug users. This has cultivated a market for different strains and hybrids. It's also sparked debates over its growth and potential medical use. Many of those took place on Reddit, where a community formed around the plant. That was the case for Reynolds 119113, who was active in the community for years. He'd been marked as a trusted vendor, a badge of honor for those looking to buy. This made it much more of a shock when the story unfolded the way it did on December 20th, 2022. That day, Reynolds posted about a purchase he felt didn't live up to expectations. It was supposed to be a specific hybrid valued at over $100. He claimed to have been sold the wrong strain. This was immediately seen as baseless, as he was objectively wrong. They ridiculed his poor identification skills, with one posting their own as an example. "It looks like mine. I wonder if it's off the same plant." This, by complete accident, would unravel his lies. In response, a user stepped forward to affirm he was right. It was the same plant. He ran a page called Connor's Cactus Corner and had sold to both of them. But that was only the beginning. Connor then alleged that OP had scammed him. Reynolds hastily denied this, replying with his own side of events. But that was while admitting he hadn't paid a dime. This dude isn't even explaining half the story. This guy is a trip man. Never buy from sellers with no sale history. This guy didn't know how to properly package and ship this beautiful cut, and it showed up at my house with several black squishy spots. He said to keep the money, so I'm not sure why he's bitching about it. I was gonna send the cut back to him, but he said to just keep it. This explanation already didn't suffice, as people could tell nothing was wrong with the cactus. But it was decisive conclusively disproven with the release of their chat logs. The next day, Connor created a thread to warn the community. It includes screenshots of their entire conversation. The interaction began after Reynolds publicly expressed an interest in rare genetics. That's when he reached out, offering 10 inches for $100. Reynolds accepted, though he was wary to pay up front due to the lack of verification. He then assured the vendor that he'd never risk his reputation by committing fraud. The request was obliged, with the plant sent on December 10th. Yet Reynolds never finished his side of the bargain, always finding a reason not to. That continued even once the package arrived. "You ain't out of the clear yet, bro. I'll send a picture of what's actually inside soon." This escalated to a confrontation that was cut short after he finally offered to pay. However, upon posting his info, Reynolds suddenly noticed yellow marks and squishy black rot. That was when Connor finally accepted his loss. "Congratulations, man. You scammed someone out of a cactus. Just keep it, dude, and don't bother paying me anything." He was perfectly content to suffer in silence until the post, in which Reynolds had the audacity to show it off. The fact he'd take advantage of someone in such a close-knit community earned an aggressive response. He was banned as users poured in to insult him. Reynolds couldn't help but follow along, confronting some in private. "You think you're all cool because some idiot made up some bullshit about me trying to scam him. I have 25 grand in my savings. What do I need his $100 for?" The controversy reached a broader audience after being featured on subreddit Drama. It received nearly 2,000 upvotes. This likely influenced Reynolds to contact the seller again, this time to issue threats. The cacti were apparently his main source of income, so being banned put his family at risk of starving. That apparently meant he was justified to drive to Connor's house for a quote, little one-on-one chat. The situation became such a spectacle that the original threads were locked. However, those curious in other subs continued digging, only to discover the signs were always there. First, it was revealed that Reynolds had caused issues in the past. The 31-year-old was an open scalper who took pride in ripping people off. For example, he conveniently lost track of uncompleted orders after taking a break. But more important was the reason behind that break. He struggled with addiction and was hospitalized after abusing fentanyl. This recontextualized his paranoia to perhaps be more understandable. However, it didn't excuse his actions and increasingly violent messages. He was now texting random people demanding to fight. "Bro, I would literally pay to be able to meet up with you somewhere and punch you right in the mouth." This continued until he violated the site's terms of service, causing his entire account to be suspended. With that, the story comes to an abrupt end. Reynolds hasn't been seen since, with the initial scam never being resolved. The vulgar yet appropriately named A-Holes was a space to vent about rude behavior. Though it wasn't very popular, the sub attracted a number of regulars. That included Christian Tucker, who went by the username CHTucker18. The events we'll be discussing today start on November 5th, 2016, when the man decided to air out his frustration. Chris was quite the pervert, being an open fan of adult videos. He regularly spent money ordering custom content from his favorite girls. Things went awry, however, after commissioning actress Casey Warner. The fanatic claimed that she was attempting to scam him by lying about being paid. Her threats of legal action were apparently a defense to being caught. It may have been convincing if not for the immediate receipts. Hours later, a user responded to dispute his chain of events. They had documented his behavior for months, even submitting him to the very same subreddit. This allowed them to explain the situation in depth with screenshots. It all began 2 months earlier when Chris purchased a $350 video. The transaction went smoothly, until his card was purportedly stolen. All of the charges were subsequently reversed, causing Casey's PayPal to be shut down. Under the assumption it was a mistake, she waited patiently for the issue to be resolved. However, once a month passed with no substantial progress, she took the matter to Twitter. For people who keep asking, PayPal shut me down even though I was scammed, because I'm a sex worker and I don't matter. This is the world we live in. Though not directly named, Chris outed himself by calling her a liar. He pointed to his record as a customer with a positive rating after hundreds of orders. That was undermined when she pointed out he'd done this to other women. His rebuttal was that he said sorry. I apologized to them and fixed it. You people never mentioned that side of the story. In response to being asked why the case still wasn't canceled, he gave excuses. That entailed being an unemployed student and blaming quote-unquote corporate America. He then claimed to no longer have the money even though it was refunded. None of these explanations made sense, only worsening the backlash. His remorse seemed to disappear as he berated her supporters. At one point, he even released the victim's personal info, which he had been sent by PayPal. But as the pressure mounted, he eventually gave in, promising to pay her back on November 3rd. Yet when the day came, Chris paid less than half of the amount owed. Upon confrontation, he once again played victim, claiming that college left him broke. But a quick glance at his profile revealed this to be a lie. He continued to send other girls money the entire time. Because of this, Casey finally began talking about suing. In light of this undeniable timeline, Chris switched to an alt reserved for bullies and harassers. He then accused the commenter of ableism. I am the victim. The 90% unemployment rate of autistic people proves that. We have a high homeless and poverty rate, but you and her believe that we don't want to work and want to be in poverty and homeless. Typical right-wingers. You don't know what it's like to be autistic, so shut the F up. This, of course, was ignoring just how much money he was spending. By his own estimate, he'd bought hundreds of custom videos. That meant at around $100 a pop, he'd spent about $10,000. The rebuttal was submitted to subreddit Drama, where it received almost 500 upvotes. This was, as it turns out, not his first appearance on the page. He was already known for a thread in May about his harassment. This was similarly sparked by a screenshot he submitted himself. It contains a private message sent to him by adult star Christiana Sin. She accused him of scamming and using psycho tactics before stating he shouldn't be allowed on social media. He'd been obsessively stalking her for months. Rather than acknowledge this, he called her an ableist bitch. No one took his side, so like clockwork, he used his diagnosis as a defense. When that didn't work, he sought refuge in a sub for Asperger's. He attempted to frame himself generously, asking if he was truly responsible for his actions. Every time I explain some of my bad behavior is because of autism, I get attacked saying that I'm responsible for my actions, which is slightly true, but there are some things I can't control. This too was rejected once the context was revealed. Let me guess, you're referring to the way you treated that porn star and outright harassed her. You can't blame that on your Asperger's, you know. To this, Chris replied, "What's their excuse for taking advantage of a cognitively disabled man?" He then created his own community, Call Out Ableists. It seemed that nothing could get the man to change his ways. He continued begging for Christiana to unblock him. That soon expanded to contacting her associates. He tweeted about going to the same events as her, noting he was likely to be kicked out for false stalking and harassment charges. The cycle continued to the point that he was banned from one convention entirely. That was while various drama communities documented his continual harassment of women. He was seemingly ousted for good in mid-2017, when references to his behavior abruptly stopped. It's unclear what the final straw was, but if there was any explanation, it would likely be in his apology video to both Casey and the entire industry. One of the only comments is from a Chris Chan impersonator. "You're an insult to real autistics like me." With the rapid advancement of consumer technology in recent years, the demand for drones has exploded. One of these developments is the ability to fly in the first person. Referred to as FPV, the drone is equipped with a camera that streams a live video feed. This allows the pilot to operate as if they were inside the aircraft. The immersion can be deepened even further with the use of specialized goggles. It's said that the gear provides a unique, breathtaking sensation of flight. This takes us to RFPV, where hobbyists gather to talk and resell equipment. On June 15th, 2023, user 510GoShadow posted about one such exchange, which he described as a scam. Last year I met a guy in a local FPV group named Manny. He had a bunch of gear for sale with not too unbelievable prices either, so I talked with him and came to a deal. I send the money and he sends the gear, but apparently he uses a stolen card to place the order and have it sent to me. He went as far as saying it's a gift and to not include any order slip in the packages, so I was completely clueless. I thought they came from him. By the time he learned it was fraudulent, 6 months had passed, and all the gear had been used. The revelation came after he received a notice threatening him with legal action. Presumably, the charges on the stolen cards bounced and the store came asking for money. He offered to send back the used gear, but they refused, demanding the amount in cash. Unsure of what to do, he spoke with several different lawyers. The latter all laughed it off, stating the store only had a case against Manny, who at this point was long gone. That didn't stop the merchant, who ended up suing him anyway. They lost, but even still, the man found himself pressured to pay them back. This is what brought him to the subreddit to ask for more advice. One of the lawyers told me not to entertain giving anything back because it can look like a sign of guilt. I wasn't going to pay them back anyways because I already was thinking the same, even though the store is great, and I feel really bad about the whole situation. Given the circumstances, many were quick to extend their sympathies as he appeared to be in the wrong place at the wrong time. But others were quick to notice how bizarre the entire story was. This was slightly recontextualized when he forfeited a detail missing from the original post. The store wasn't just asking for money, but accusing him of being part of the scam. While the exact amount wasn't disclosed yet, it had to have been quite substantial for this sort of response. That led some to cast doubt on the idea he was completely oblivious. You're trying to make us think that you thought brand new stuff that came in the package was used? You are full of shit, and I'm starting to believe this whole post is garbage. You spent $5K on used FPV gear? What the F is this post? No one is buying this shit. In his defense, he never claimed to have thought it was secondhand. However, his response only led to more questions than answers. I only bought $600 of new gear. It was advertised as new. Where did I say used? The guy who ordered it also ordered $4,400 to other addresses. But the FPV store is blaming me for it since my name was the only real name they got on all of the orders. Before long, the entire thread was in consensus that the man knowingly committed fraud. But if this wasn't definitive enough, a sleuth would end up uncovering his shady past. It turns out the user had been outed before on a Facebook group for newcomers to the hobby. He was identified as Sunny Singh Rai, with the post reading as follows: "Beware, this guy is a thief and will ask to borrow your stuff or flat out steal it. He has stolen thousands. Do yourself a favor and avoid him at all costs." Then he brags in groups about how people gave him stuff. Yet he ignores those people and won't respond to a single message. Why? Because they want their stuff back, thief. The post was later edited to include more about his personal experience with Sunny. Sunny joined a group of my friends to go fly FPV. He came over to the house several times, went flying a few times, talked to him several days on the phone, etc, etc. While he's at the house, he takes the O3 Air unit and 2 HD Cinelogs and some batteries. Regardless of whether he picked them up on his own or was borrowing something, when he was contacted by several people to return the he ghosted everyone. So if you see Sunny and he wants to fly, watch out, he has sticky fingers. If he says he can help you fix something, he is actually trying to steal it. If he says he has a bunch of something, it's because he stole it. He is a wolf in sheep's clothing and will pretend to be a friend and then rob you blind and hide. After he robs you, then he will post your stolen stuff online saying, "Look at what my friend gave me." In light of this, Sunny was unable to provide a sufficeable explanation. He attempted to deny the man was him while claiming he'd been proven innocent. Needless to say, he wasn't able to fool them any longer. They noticed that other users began defending him from the third person, showing he had alt accounts. He then made it a point to brag about how he couldn't be banned because of his VPN. Even more evidence surfaced of him discussing the initial transaction a year ago and gloating about gear he received for free. Because of this, the man was eventually proclaimed the biggest scammer in the community. While he was adamant that he'd been declared innocent in court, this too was called into question. After all, it seemed odd to ask for legal advice if the matter was already settled. However, for now the truth in that regard remains unclear, with the FPV scammer seeming to face little punishment beyond public ridicule. While not nearly as advertised, Reddit has become a popular host for perversion. This has made the platform invaluable for sex workers looking to advertise their content. In that sense, Claudia was no different. The 19-year-old created her account in early 2023, where she quickly attracted a loyal audience. Her first post was to our faces, which garnered about 3,000 upvotes. That only continued as she posted increasingly lewd photos in subs like normal nudes, rate my boobs, and slutty confessions. They displayed her body with captions about various erotic acts. Unsurprisingly, the comments were filled with men fantasizing about using her. It was part of the business. Claudia often invited them to message her privately, where she promised nudes for a price. To many, her sheer beauty felt too good to be true. But this time, that suspicion wasn't entirely stemming from lust. It was on her very first post that one user would ruin the immersion. For those who aren't aware, I'm going to kill your fantasy. This is literally an AI creation. If you've worked with AI image models and made your own long enough, you can 10,000% tell. Sorry to ruin the surprise, I guess. You see, the entire account had been designed as a social experiment. It had been created by two computer science students inspired by a catfish story they read. They wondered how feasible such a stunt would be with AI. The account managed to evade scrutiny for 3 months before being conclusively outed. That was when the creators spoke anonymously to the Rolling Stone. They revealed that the images were made with Stable Diffusion, a program that uses prompts to generate images. In this case, the text was a woman in her house without makeup, with black hair, shoulder-length hair, simple background, straight hair, hair bangs. Though the account began as a joke, they quickly realized there was an actual market. They made $100 from privately selling her nudes. This, of course, opened the question over if it was ethical or false advertising. The students had kept it ambiguous, never explicitly stating Claudia was or wasn't AI. We don't really know how to think about this. The person buying the pictures is happy with their purchase since they are looking for porn. We never really said those are pictures of a real person, and the buyer never really asked. They just assumed. Though the effort was short-lived, the fact it was so successful with such minimal effort is indicative of the future. There will undeniably be copycats that blur the line as technology improves. Is it inherently dishonest to sell synthetic nudes? Well, Claudia was caught, so what if it gets to the point that no one can tell? Claudia is the first of what may be the next evolution of catfishing. Until then, all that can be left is to speculate, with most reluctant to consider her naked images a scam. GoFundMe is famous for its promotion of medical fundraising. The site allows strangers to assist in paying for otherwise unaffordable health-related bills. Because of this, it's no surprise many scammers take advantage of that generosity. But the most shameless of the lot are those willing to fake terminal illness, especially with their own children. That takes us to CJ Strong, which was started on July 30th, 2017. It was supposedly made by a friend of the LaFrance family, who had just received devastating news. Martin and Jolene were told that their son had Hodgkin's lymphoma, a form of cancer that targets the immune system. They were then informed he had several malignant tumors. The fundraiser reads, CJ has to go to the children's hospital several times a week for treatment, which has forced both Jolene and Marty to take a leave of absence from work. They have been out of work since March, leaving them with no income. Any funds raised will go towards medical expenses, gas for travel, and anything else related to this difficult time. To make matters worse, later updates claimed Jolene herself was afflicted with lupus. The only archive available shows that in the first month, they raised over $3,000. While this wasn't enough to reach their goal, it did catch the attention of locals. CJ and his family were brought to a practice meet by the Syracuse football team. The boy got to meet his favorite college athletes, who even let him break down a chant. The couple told reporters their son actively underwent radiation and chemotherapy. They even said he had multiple lymph nodes surgically removed. That was in spite of the fact that he had a full head of hair. While none of the players or journalists questioned his illness, authorities were unconvinced. Police began a 4-month-long investigation that ultimately confirmed their suspicions. CJ was never diagnosed with cancer or any of the conditions his parents solicited donations for. Because of this, on May 7th, 2018, Martin and Jolene were arrested. They were charged with first-degree scheme to fraud, as well as child endangerment. The two were ultimately sentenced to 5 years of probation and $3,000 restitution. GoFundMe subsequently issued a refund to anyone who donated. Alas, the LaFrance family were far from the only people who attempted this kind of stunt, with a similar case occurring just a year prior. In June of 2016, Victoria Morrison started the campaign Blake's Bucket List. She wrote that her 10-year-old son had recently been diagnosed with leukemia. It then explained her inability to fulfill his last will. He made a list of things he wants to do before he gets too sick, and it's my job to help him do just that. But I'm a single mom to 3 other kids and work, so please, if you have a spare dollar, help make my son's dream come true. It raised approximately $2,000 as people reached out to make his last days worthwhile. That included a shopping spree with emergency responders and even a helicopter ride. Unfortunately, tragedy struck shortly after these gifts. In early 2017, Victoria revealed on social media that Blake had passed away. Her son's body was to be cremated, with a memorial service held that April. The community was devastated, but weeks later, everything they thought they knew about him was changed. On April 14th, law enforcement discovered that Blake was alive and well, and being hidden away at a motel. Not only that, but he was in perfect health, showing no sign of the supposed ailments. They subsequently arrested Victoria on charges of fraud, and spoke with her son. Through this, they realized Blake had also been led to believe he was dying. She was charged with child neglect or endangerment causing substantial mental harm. As a result, Victoria pleaded guilty and in 2018 was sentenced to a minimum of 5 years in prison. The money was also thankfully refunded by the site. While both of these examples are of parents exploiting their kids, that trend was far from universal. There are countless examples of an individual faking their own illness for profit, such as the case with the story of Cynthia Smith. It all began in the fall of 2014 with the page, "Please help us save Cindy's life." It was made by a woman distraught over her friend's health. She wrote that Cynthia suffered from CIDP, an extremely rare autoimmune disorder that causes the body to attack itself. Not only is CIDP incurable, but it often leads to blindness, paralysis, and even organ failure. If that wasn't bad enough, it necessitated frequent hospital visits and medical expenses. That included $7,000 a week for medication, and an experimental surgery that cost $500,000. Now, Cindy could no longer afford to survive. Miraculously, the fundraiser proved successful. It was shared across the World Wide Web in the coming months, collecting over $126,000. This attention led the Hamilton Spectator to become interested in profiling the story. In March of 2015, they spoke to the woman's friends and loved ones about her battle. They recalled her health had begun to rapidly deteriorate in October. She was left bedridden, blind, and unable to speak. Eventually, her immune system became so weak she could no longer have visitors. She apparently had to be airlifted to a hospital after experiencing organ failure. The outlet initially took this at face value, but they found themselves unable to substantiate any of Cindy's afflictions. Her close ones also couldn't produce any detailed medical information. Because of this, the article was never published. The same wasn't true for the Burlington Post, who similarly wrote about her case. They only came to the same conclusion afterward, issuing a retraction. But unlike the former, they had contacted law enforcement over their concern. In response, authorities began investigating the woman's past. They seized Cindy's medical documents, finding she had never been diagnosed with CIDP. She was perfectly fine and able to see, walk, and talk. With this, they started to question if others were aware of the lie. But even after scrutiny, they concluded that Cindy had acted on her own. She'd convinced her entire community, including her own family and friends, that she was dying. That included purchasing expensive medical equipment to perpetuate the facade, and her exploitation of their generosity extended beyond GoFundMe. In December, Cindy's mother took her store to shore at the mall to ask for donations. Catherine Rudda, a store manager, saw her sobbing as Cindy sat in a wheelchair. This led her to donate 8 boxes of items that once belonged to her own and now deceased mother. Catherine wasn't alone either. Police would find a storage locker filled with similar gifts from locals. What they couldn't recover was the hundreds of thousands of online donations. The vast majority had disappeared, with officials only able to recover $7,200 from her account. In May of 2015, Cindy was arrested and charged with defrauding the public of more than $5,000. The news shocked everyone in her life, still under the belief she was chronically ill. She pled guilty to a lesser charge the next year and was sentenced to 2 years of probation. This was in part due to their inability to locate the missing funds. They concluded the campaign amount had likely been inflated, but it remains uncertain to this day. Unfortunately, this is only the start of the depths of depravity on GoFundMe. Our next story today starts with a GoFundMe page titled Paying It Forward. It was created on November 10th, 2017 by Kate McClure and her boyfriend Mark D'Amico. The couple explained that a month earlier, Kate was driving to Philadelphia when she ran out of gas. This forced her to pull over on the side of the highway. It was then that the woman was approached by a homeless man offering to help. Taken aback, she got into her car and locked the doors. But the stranger kept his word. He went to a nearby gas station and used his last $20 to fill up a canister. He then brought it back and filled up her tank. While grateful, Kate had no money on hand, so she promised to return with a gift. The woman and her boyfriend would end up returning several times in the following weeks. They'd bring him cash, snacks, and Wawa gift cards. Each time, they'd learn a little more about the man's backstory. As it turns out, Johnny Bobbitt Jr. was a 34-year-old veteran who served in the Marine Corps. Following his service, he moved around the country going from job to job. That was what brought him to Philadelphia, pursuing an offer with just enough money to buy a truck. But the prospect fell through, forcing him to withdraw the little savings he had. It was in the midst of this that he then lost his paperwork. It rendered him unable to work as he quickly depleted his entire bank account. By the time he met Kate, he'd been homeless for an entire year, sleeping under a bridge. It was humbling to understand this gratitude came from someone with so little to give. Eventually, they came to the conclusion that he deserved much more. The GoFundMe and its story was so inspiring that they raised over $1,700 in the first week. Bobbitt was ecstatic, as even that amount would change his life. But neither he nor the couple could have predicted what would happen next. The fundraiser went viral as tens of thousands began sharing the link. By November 24th, they'd collected over $400,000, far exceeding the original goal. Because of this, Johnny requested they stop taking donations. The two obliged and wrote in a post. Johnny asked, instead of donating to his campaign, to maybe take a second to search for another worthy cause that for whatever reason hasn't gotten the attention his has. Mark and I couldn't begin to express how grateful we are that you guys made this little fantasy a reality. In the coming days, the three appeared on various TV stations and outlets looking for a feel-good story. Johnny would talk about how fortunate he was to get a second chance at life. Shortly after, the organizers outlined their plan for the fund. The first purchase would be a new home that Johnny fully owned. Then his dream truck, a 1999 Ford Ranger. The rest was to be put in 2 trusts set up in his name. The first gave him the ability to collect a small salary each year. The second was for retirement at the behest of a professional. Johnny would be given access only when he felt comfortable. This was so he could one day live out his dream of owning a piece of land in the country. Until then, he was given a bank account with funds for everyday needs. The couple noted the plan was made by the Bobbitts' lawyer and financial advisor. They also vowed to take an active role in helping him secure a job. It appeared that a lot of planning was done to ensure this was all handled correctly. Thus, people trusted Johnny was quietly getting back on his feet as updates slowed down. But unfortunately, this is where the story takes a turn for the worse. You see, behind the scenes, tensions rose as Mark and Kate didn't fulfill their promises. Instead of a house, Johnny was moved into a camper on land owned by McClure's family. He was then given a used SUV that swiftly broke down. The two trusts were similarly never made. Meanwhile, the couple's lifestyle became suspiciously luxurious. Kate purchased a new BMW and started vacationing across the country. She even embarked on a helicopter ride over the Grand Canyon. D'Amico, meanwhile, spent his time gambling at a concerning frequency. These observations made Johnny suspicious over how the funds were handled, and the subsequent confrontation only led their friendship to deteriorate further. To make things worse, Bobbitt then relapsed on heroin. He was put into rehab twice, before being kicked back out to the street. In the end, the man was once again homeless and panhandling. This information came to light in August of 2018, when Johnny was found and interviewed by the Philadelphia Inquirer. There, he also revealed he only met his financial advisor once, and never saw his lawyer. Though this all seemed damning, the couple refuted his claims. They argued the purchases in question were made using their own money. Mark and Kate received sizable sums after appearing on shows like Ellen DeGeneres. D'Amico did admit that he used $500 from the GoFundMe for gambling, but he stipulated that it was all immediately repaid with his winnings. Finally, the two explained their justification for withholding the funds. $200,000 had supposedly already been given to Bobbitt, only for him to waste it. That included a gift of $25,000 on Christmas, which he burned through in a matter of weeks. And those spending habits only worsened following the relapse. They noted he started visiting areas known for dealing, and allegedly he even stole and pawned their belongings to fuel his habit. Mark went so far as to state, "Giving him all that money, it's never going to happen. I'll burn it in front of him. Giving the money to someone addicted to drugs would be like giving him a loaded gun." The remaining half was said to be kept in a savings account. It would only start dispensing when Johnny was sober and had a job. Given the man had indeed relapsed, their story seemed plausible. But Johnny denied the alleged theft, and felt there was no way he was given anywhere near that amount. The author was able to point out at least one discrepancy. Mark and Kate claimed to have bought 2 vehicles for Bobbitt in their own names so he could sell them. But by the time the article was written, they'd both been sold anyway. Regardless of who they believed, this all caused a massive wave of backlash. For the public to raise almost $500,000 for someone who less than a year later was homeless again felt implausible. Enough so that the crowdfunding site itself began investigating. Following these revelations, GoFundMe issued a statement. "We are looking into the claims of misuse regarding this campaign. When there is a dispute, we work with all parties involved to ensure funds go to the right place. We will work to ensure that Johnny receives the help he deserves and that the donor's intentions are honored. GoFundMe always cooperates with law enforcement investigations." Afterward, Johnny's lawyer stepped forward to speak for his client's interests. He decided to represent Mr. Bobbitt completely pro bono. His attorney estimated Johnny received only a fraction of the donations, estimating around $75,000. The rest was transferred to the couple's personal bank and was completely unaccounted for. Because of this, she arranged a meeting with them in hopes of getting a breakdown of how they spent the cheddar. But when the time came, she discovered that no documentation existed. In fact, it was unclear how much was even left. Given how specific the original plan had been, this was a major red flag. Within 24 hours, a lawsuit was filed alleging the duo had committed conspiracy and fraud. The first hearing was held 2 days later, to which they didn't appear. The judge ordered them to transfer the remaining funds into an escrow account, but by the second hearing, this still hadn't occurred. The judge became frustrated. He once again asked their lawyer about the money. This time, the attorney stated his clients invoked their Fifth Amendment right to avoid self-incrimination and would not produce the financial information requested. It was clear that something was seriously wrong, and that was affirmed when police raided the couple's home the following morning. It was captured on video and posted onto social media. Mark is visibly unfazed, continuing to play golf as authorities search their residence. His nonchalance felt bizarre given criminal charges were now on the table. That was an opinion held by their own attorney, who then dropped the two as clients. He disclosed that none of the money remained. By this point, the case had captured national attention. The once viral stars fell from grace as people scrutinized their past. In particular, they looked closer at Mark, who was embroiled in other concurrent legal issues. The serial gambler was sent to appear in court that month for a completely unrelated crime. He allegedly ripped 3 headrests off his car and threw them out the window. This hit the vehicle next to him, causing upwards of $2,000 in damages. That was just one of 3 different traffic incidents. While the others were less severe, Mark refused to address any of them in court. In response, a warrant was issued that led to his arrest on September 10th. He'd quickly posted bail before promising to save his public reputation. The degenerate gambler claimed to have an explanation that would make everything crystal clear. Whatever it was, it didn't impress law enforcement though. 2 months later, Mark and Kate were arrested on charges of conspiracy and theft by deception. The public rejoiced, as it seemed Johnny would finally get the justice he deserved. But shockingly, police arrested the homeless man as well later that afternoon. The complaint alleged the trio actually conspired together to fabricate the campaign. This was confusing as the scrutiny only came after the man claimed to have been scammed. Many thought they'd misread the situation, but authorities would clear everything up at a press conference held the next day. Upon raiding the couple's home, they uncovered a trove of electronic records, including bank statements and over 6,000 text messages. This allowed them to uncover a complete timeline of events that contradicted their own beliefs. To start, the backstory had been completely fabricated. The tale where a homeless man helped the woman with his last $20 never happened. In reality, they first spotted him by an underpass during their frequent visits to the casino. It started with small gestures of generosity, offering change or a hot cup of coffee, but they eventually fixated on the idea of changing his life. The couple began texting back and forth about potential acts of charity. Food, clothes, a Nintendo Switch, even a job and a house. But it didn't seem feasible. That is, until they came up with the GoFundMe. While they felt he was deserving of such help, they weren't sure his story alone would catch people's attention. Kate would confess to a friend, "The gas part is completely made up, but the guy isn't. I had to make something up to make people feel bad, so shush about the made up part." To achieve this, Mark invented the story of that fateful night on the highway, though it's more accurate to say he repurposed it. He told a nearly identical tale in 2012, whilst living in North Carolina. He recalled on Twitter, "So this girl runs out of gas and has a flat tire at the same time in front of a Walmart and is blocking traffic. So I run to the gas station and then change her tire. I spent the only cash I had for supper, but at least she can get her little children home safe." The story worked, and the trio became a sensation overnight. In addition to their media run, the couple were in talks for a book deal. They were set to receive their own share of compensation. But rather than accept that amount, they decided to hoard the GoFundMe as well. It was used to buy designer clothes, cars, and vacations. Records show they withdrew over $85,000 in or around casinos across the East Coast. This discrepancy wasn't lost on Bobbitt, who began demanding more. Johnny was aware of the faux story, but did genuinely need the money. The details of his homelessness, military service, and inability to work was true, but they refused, even after being warned by friends of what could and did eventually happen. In March of 2018, a friend warned Kate, "You really need to get Bobbitt and get the public off your back by donating. He could out you." In reply, she remarked, "I'll be keeping the rest of the money. F you very much." One message also showed her mother expressing concern. "She just called me and said that people go to jail for scamming others out of money. So there's that. That's what my own mother thinks of me." By the time Kate regretted this, it was too late. In one conversation, she admonished, I can't believe we have less than 10k left. I'm so upset. Mark assured her that their book deal would dwarf whatever money they stole. That continued even after the news broke of their betrayal. He suggested throwing Johnny under the bus, entitling it No Good Deed. But as the scam continued to fall apart, the couple started to argue over culpability. Mark wrote, $20,000, BMW, 5,000, Disney World and land trips, 10,000 in bags. We both went to Vegas, right? Like you act like you didn't spend $1. Kate reflected, I wish that you never updated the GoFundMe. Like, we should have just let it go and not effing kept people informed. While prosecutors were still accounting their finances, they were certain that none remained. In light of this, GoFundMe issued refunds to all 14,000 people who donated to Bobbitt. They also revoked their previous offer to fully reimburse Johnny the $400,000. By this point, Mark and Kate's relationship had deteriorated. The two now had separate lawyers and were dead set on incriminating each other. On November 16th, Kate's attorney claims she'd been victimized by the two men. Kate's a bit naive, and she's come out of a troubled relationship. And now she was with D'Amico, who was 10 or 11 years her senior, and she was under his influence. All of this occurred because of her trust in D'Amico. He argued that while Kate was aware of the initial lie, she was well-intentioned and tried to end the ruse early. When the GoFundMe reached $10,000, she attempted to pause donations, only for the site to state it wasn't possible. She then tried again when it hit $100,000 to no avail. This narrative, however, was easily disproved. GoFundMe allows users to stop campaigns at any time. This is apparent given they'd briefly done so when Johnny asked. But critically, as it turns out, it was actually reopened afterward against his wishes. In light of all this indisputable evidence, the verdict was inevitable. By 2022, Mark and Kate had both pleaded guilty to state and federal charges. Mark was sentenced to 5 years behind state bars for the misapplication of entrusted property. That was concurrent with his federal sentence, which forced him to spend 2 years at a federal prison. Kate was similarly sentenced to a year in federal prison, and an additional 2 years in state. Johnny was a bit more fortunate. He was sentenced to 5 years on probation, and mandated to attend a drug rehab program. He was also ordered to pay $25,000 in restitution. It turns out the couple's story of him wasting that amount had legitimacy. Regardless, he was given leniency for both cooperating and being more sympathetic. Our final tale begins with an arrest in Scottsdale, Arizona on March 21st, 2014. That day, local police were called after a woman heard crying in a parking lot. This led her to discover an infant and a toddler who'd been left directly under the sun in a car. Its engine was off, and the 4 windows opened slightly. That led the vehicle to reach a temperature of over 100 degrees. The officers waited outside for over half an hour when their mother finally arrived. Immediately, 35-year-old Shanisha Taylor attempted to explain herself. The single parent was homeless and naturally couldn't afford a caretaker, but she had to leave in order to complete a job interview. In spite of this, Shanisa was arrested and booked in jail for felony child abuse. Child Protective Services then took custody of her kids. While she failed to convince authorities, the public felt sympathetic. They questioned what options she truly had in that position. One such individual was Amanda Bishop. She reflected, Shanisha was in an unfortunate situation that sadly an economy like ours is putting many single mothers in a position to make terrible mistakes like this. This led her to the GoFundMe-owned site, You Caring. On March 23rd, Amanda started a fundraiser to assist in the woman's legal expenses. It quickly gained traction as thousands pledged support. While originally for bail, the funds were later arranged to be deposited to Taylor directly. This was due to the sheer influx of donations. By April 2nd, the page had amassed over $75,000. The description was then updated to confirm the recipient was aware of its existence. I was able to speak with Shanisha for the first time today. She will be receiving the first installment of the fundraiser this week. She is overwhelmed by the generosity of so many strangers. I hope that you will see fit to continue donating to this fundraiser. And as awareness grew, the conversation began to reach beyond the campaign. Her story received national coverage as #ISupportShanisha trended on Twitter. There, users pointed out her arrest may have been racist. A petition requesting the charges be dismissed also drew over 58,000 signatures. By the end, the public raised $114,000 for the struggling parent. This was not only heartfelt, but led to opportunities no one could have foreseen. That summer, the prosecution offered a plea deal that gave her a chance to dismiss the felonies. It would also guarantee custody over her 3 children. She simply had to complete 25 hours of parenting classes and establish trust funds for her kids. It was to be done with $60,000 from the donations. This deal was nothing short of a miracle. Her own lawyer called it proof that justice could be merciful. Not only would the mother no longer be charged with child abuse, but it ensured the money was put to good use. So Shanisha agreed and stated, "I realize I made a mistake, but I'm grateful that they took a look at my situation and what I was intending to do that day." With such an outcome, one might expect this to be the end. Shanisha could quietly get back on her feet and work towards the future. But as you can probably guess, that didn't happen. Months later, Shanisha made headlines again when her miraculous plea deal was revoked. It had been conditional on her fulfillment of the agreement. Yet, by the final deadline on November 6th, she still hadn't made either of the trust funds. This infuriated the district attorney. He stated his patience had reached its limits and that she'd be going to trial. It turns out he attempted to compromise with the single parent several times to no avail. That included lowering the amount to $40,000, less than half of the total donations. But continuously she refused to follow through. Both of her lawyers soon requested to be removed. One remarked their client had thrown away the deal of a lifetime, but the woman defended her inaction. Shanisha argued the trust fund was unreasonable, as her kids only got access if they attended college. It was more important to her to pay for current expenses. She claimed to have only spent $44,000, which was used for rent and childcare. But a local activist contradicted this and explained what he saw as a former supporter. Reverend Jarrett Maupin had reached out in order to help her find employment. He arranged job offers in the hospitality industry, which she expressed interest in, but they never went through. He reflected, "I call these tailor-ready jobs. All she had to do was show up. Unfortunately, she didn't." But even more damning was information he received afterward. While in his office, he received a phone call from someone who saw her at a music studio. They claim she spent $6,000 to, quote, help finish her baby daddy's rap album. Now Maupin believed her money had run out. When it wasn't spent to pay rent, a new car, or the children's trust, yet you're applying for a public defender because you're broke, all signs point to the money being gone. In response, Shanisha accused the activist of slander and that they hadn't spoken since July 21st. But it was hard to take her word after prosecutors filed records of her spending habits. It was revealed that she was spending over $4,000 a month on non-essentials. That included $300 on clothing, $745 on car-related expenses, and $300 on recreation. Her claim of retaining most of the original amount was also disproven. She initially said the money was in her mother's account, but that fell apart under scrutiny. In reality, only $35,000 was left in her possession. Whatever sympathy the public had for her at this point had evaporated. She was back in court, facing up to 18 months in jail and losing custody. That didn't stop her from attempting to court more donations on social media, all while still not having a job. Her last stunt would be an appearance on Dr. Phil, where she debated Maupin live on stage. Then, the TV host asked donors in the audience if anything they'd heard changed their mind.
What you talking about, Shanisha? You were giving money. Anybody in this audience would have took and did what they needed to do to avoid legal trouble. And it sounds to me like we're getting a lot of excuses instead of just taking responsibility and saying, hey, you know what? I'm imperfect. I screwed up. That I can take.
The trial concluded on May of 2015, when the mother once again took a plea deal. Shanisha pleaded guilty to child abuse and was sentenced to 18 years of supervised probation. This was to guarantee her children were adults when it concluded. While she escaped jail time, it was still vastly inferior to the original offer. If getting a job was difficult before, the mother now had a convicted felony. In that final court appearance, she was quiet and avoided the cameras. The public never heard from her again, as she presumably took the chance to start again more seriously. At first glance, Scarp looked like any old razor, but it had one key difference that many felt would revolutionize shaving. In place of the traditional blade was a small red laser. This supposedly had a plethora of benefits. It would allow closer contact without burns, irritation, or accidental cuts. It was also more environmentally friendly, and all it required was a single AAA battery, good for up to 50,000 hours. The concept became a media sensation, being covered in outlets like ABC, CBS, and NBC. They advertised these features while pointing out it was now available for pre-order. Because of this, Scarp easily surpassed the $160,000 goal, as tens of thousands backed them. By early October, it accumulated over $4 million. But not everything was as it seemed. What has to be understood is that Kickstarter requires a working prototype for projects to remain on the site. This should have been no issue given that the page mentions several. That included one built for aluminum and a video demonstration. Yet on October 12th, the entire campaign was shut down. The decision was explained in an email sent to all 20,000 people who donated. We've concluded it is in violation of our rule requiring working prototypes of physical products that are offered as rewards. Accordingly, all funding has been stopped and backers will not be charged for their pledges. It turns out the campaign was extremely misleading and fell apart under scrutiny. In fact, this was noted on Reddit by a user who outlined these issues a week prior. They first examined photos of the aluminum prototype. Its supposed laser resembled a red LED and bore little resemblance to the one seen on the video. The vid itself was no better. It once again lacked the laser with a thin gray wire instead. It cuts just 3 hairs over the course of 45 seconds. The author then questions Scarp's previous response to these criticisms. They wrote, "Once we're in production, we'll have alphas and betas, which we'll keep all our backers updated on. But the fibers are created at once in mass, so there's no point in extra expenses and time to run a prototype batch." The author argues, this means they don't even have a single working prototype. They're either hoping it will magically improve with mass production, or they're knowingly scamming millions of dollars out of people. I'd bet on the latter. Scarp responded by uploading a second video of the razor in action, but it's kept far away from the camera, so there's no way of verifying what was actually being used. In the end, none of their evidence was enough to remain on Kickstarter. Their CIO later claimed the removal was due to pressure from special interests lobbying. He refused to elaborate on the who or why. In spite of all this, Scarp remained steadfast in their campaign. Within hours, the startup made an identical page on Indiegogo. It was done with the explicit permission from the site, who were, quote, excited and extremely helpful. This campaign had flexible funding, meaning they'd keep the money even if the target wasn't reached. While one might expect the project to flop given these developments, it didn't. In fact, Scarp received another $500,000. Though a fraction of the original $4 million, that was still over double their goal. Much of it came from people who kept faith in their vision. One backer was quoted in The Verge stating, "I'm trusting you, but you lost the Kickstarter for a very good reason. Get one working prototype that delivers, just one, that delivers the quick and easy shave you promised." In spite of all this, Scarp remained steadfast in their campaign. Unfortunately, their hopes were dashed as the release date of March 2016 came and went. The comments were quickly filled with backers infuriated by the lack of communication. Many pointed out the engineers began making extravagant purchases that included new cars, watches, and vacations, which they documented on social media. Interestingly, though there hadn't been updates in months, these criticisms were swiftly deleted. That July, CNET reached out to co-founders Morgan and Paul. Morgan assured them that the engineering was largely done, and that it would be out by the end of the year. However, he refused to promise regular updates. Then he stated they wouldn't be offering refunds. The only silver lining to this was the involvement of Will King. The founder of King of Shaves was signed on as their chief marketing officer and advisor. His role was to help find investors for mass production, but that was under the assumption it would reach that point. To this day, not a single working prototype of Scarp has ever been shipped. Behind the scenes, things quickly fell apart. In October of 2018, Paul left the company. He went on to file a lawsuit against Scarp Technology over a breach of contract. The case remains ongoing as of writing. In November of 2020, Scarp was dissolved by Morgan. In spite of this, he continued to post updates implying the razor was still being made. That only stopped in March of 2022. Perhaps it's no coincidence that a year later, the man filed for bankruptcy. Morgan had noticeably become more erratic over the years, and occasionally let on more than he should have. That included an exchange where he admitted nothing they made worked. He then blamed its failure on Kickstarter's shutdown, stating, "It could have been shipped by now and would have been much bigger." The former CEO then finally names the special interests lobbying against them as being just internet trolls. None of the backers on Indiegogo have received their reward or a refund. The comments make it clear that they've attempted to report this information to the site to no avail. Whether or not that will change, or the incident will be swept under the rug, remains to be seen. While this may seem outrageous enough on its own, this is only the tip of the iceberg on insane crowdfunding scams. We'll learn more about the others after a brief word from our sponsor. It's an unfortunate fact of modern day life that anyone can find anything about you on the internet, including your full name, your personal email, your home address, phone number, and even your relatives. This information is accessible because of data brokers, who profit by selling your information to robocallers, telemarketers, spammers, and anyone else that wants to learn more about you. And that's why I'm excited about today's sponsor, Aura. To put it simply, Aura will identify data brokers that are exposing your information and automatically submit opt-out requests on your behalf. They'll even opt you out of junk mail and telemarketing lists. As a person myself who has some notoriety on the internet, this is extremely helpful, and anyone that doesn't want that stuff out there should definitely consider using this service. On top of this, Aura also monitors your emails and passwords to see if they were involved in a data breach and exposed on the dark web, and gives you recommendations on what to do. Aura's app also features a VPN, password manager, real-time credit and identity theft monitoring, internet parental controls, and protects your device from malware. They basically have almost every internet safety tool you'll ever need, all inside one app. That's why I suggest you let Aura do the hard work of keeping you safe online. If you sign up right now, Aura will give you a 2-week free trial with my link below. You'll be shocked at how much of your private information Aura finds exposed over these 2 weeks. So to try it out for yourself, go to aura.com/GFM to start your free trial. The link will also be provided down below, or you could scan the QR code available on the screen right now. Based out of the UK, Torking Group Limited had quite an esteemed reputation. They were known for their innovations in aerospace and defense technology, but most promising was the passion project of CEO Ivan Reedman. Ivan took particular interest in nano UAVs, which are tiny unarmed military vehicles. He sought to reduce their size as much as possible without impacting their capabilities. It was to great success, even getting praise from Wales' Secretary of State at the time. But as their research developed, it led them to contemplate a new market. What if this tech could reach consumers? The company first thought of this concept in late 2013, and a year later, they were ready to seek funding from the public. In November of 2014, they officially unveiled Xano, the world's most sophisticated nano drone. It captured photos and video while being small enough to fit in your palm. The remote control was a smartphone app to add further simplicity, but the true selling point was its autonomy. The drone was intelligent enough to pilot itself. It followed the user automatically, and could even take selfies. In spite of these ambitious features, it was set to ship out to backers as early as next June. They claimed this was possible because their supply chain was ready to go. The promotional video only affirmed this, showing the drone in action. The whole campaign seemed too good to be true, but with such credentials, there was no reason to doubt their claims. The project went on to become the most funded Kickstarter project in Europe. It shot past the original budget, earning 2.3 million euro. That was approximately $3.5 million at the time. This achieved all their stretch goals, unlocking even more features. The machine would now boast thermal imaging, wireless charging, and more. Following this, updates began to be posted every week. They gave insight on their stages of production and showed the assembly lines. As the release date crept closer, interest in the device only grew. Because of this, Xano decided to take pre-orders. This resulted in 3,000 additional units being sold. In total, the company was now responsible for 15,000 drones. Everything appeared to be going well, as Xano was on track to become one of the site's biggest success stories. Unfortunately, it wasn't long after that things began to slow down. There seemed to be a constant string of complications, culminating in the June deadline being missed. It wouldn't be until early September that drones were finally sent out. In total, 600 were shipped to consumers, but rather than backers, they were instead sent to pre-orders. This prioritization infuriated the thousands who had invested under that promise. Even those who received the device weren't thrilled. The Xanos were reported to be barely operational. The following is an excerpt describing the various issues from British journalist Mark Harris. They reported that drones would repeatedly bunny hop a few centimeters in the air before landing again, or veer off wildly to crash into walls. Video quality was dreadful, and there was no sign of even basic obstacle avoidance or gesture control, let alone fully autonomous flight. There would be no refuge for their backers. On November 10th, Ivan abruptly resigned from Torking, citing irreconcilable differences. He appeared devastated by its state, writing, "The last 7 years of my life are in TG. Everything I have worked so hard for is in TG, and to no longer be able to be part of everything I have built only makes me suffer even more." This led some journalists to suggest that the company was in a serious crisis and on the verge of collapse. 8 days later, that speculation was proven correct when Torking announced it was entering a creditor's voluntary liquidation. This is roughly equivalent to an American Chapter 7 bankruptcy. They had spent all of their funding and were now liquidating the assets. We are greatly disappointed with the outcome of the Xano project, and we would like to take this opportunity to thank everyone who has supported us during this difficult period, especially our loyal employees, whose commitment has exceeded all expectations. The page erupted in backlash, accumulating over 8,000 comments. One user started a petition declaring it Kickstarter's biggest fraud and demanding full refunds. It received almost 3,000 signatures. Even the few who received their device weren't very lucky. The drone was only functional if it could connect to their server upon being turned on. Those servers were shut down after the announcement, rendering the machine useless. This level of disaster over the span of a year seemed implausible. To many, the only rational explanation was a misuse of funds. In fact, the ordeal was suspicious enough that Kickstarter itself began to question it, but they were unable to contact Torking, whose creators disappeared from the internet. That December, Kickstarter hired journalist Mark Harris to investigate the startup. He was to research Xano's creators and pay special attention to where the money had gone. This was to determine if it had been a deliberate scam. The process took 5 weeks, as Mark mulled over documents and interviewed as many people as he could. In the end, he concluded it was not the result of foul play. The evidence instead pointed to the firm being incompetent. They were unequipped to mass produce the drone, as the issues only continued to mount. Then the money ran out due to their poor financial awareness. But as Harris pointed out, none of them ended up rich on the backs of the crowd. However, there was still one key discrepancy: the campaign's original promotional video. Why were the shipped Xanos so inferior in comparison? In his own analysis, Harris found several red flags that the ad was manipulated. Several scenes appeared to be either reversed or slowed down. Many purported drone shots resembled the work of a videographer they'd hired. The Xano is never shown in a continuous shot from takeoff through flight, and one scene has visible effects matting, suggesting its display was replaced in post. These were all violations of Kickstarter's hardware and product design project guidelines. They state, projects cannot simulate events to demonstrate what it might do in the future. Projects can only be shown performing actions they're able to perform in their current state. Product images must be photos of the prototype as it currently exists. Ivan denied using CGI, other drones, or even selfie sticks in their footage, but he did admit that the video showed features that were not operational at the time. If this is the case, it stands to reason the campaign was still misleading and possibly even a scam. Unfortunately, it appears Kickstarter disagreed, as none of the 12,000 backers had their money returned. With that said, Xano has somehow managed to live on, at least in spirit. In February of 2017, €1 million worth of components from the drones were auctioned off, and similarly, their assets and IP were purchased by the company Extreme Flyers. In 2018, Extreme Flyers produced new editions of Xano for display at that year's CES event. Its owner loved the campaign's promise of consumer access and hoped to fulfill it one day themselves. It seems, however, that the brand was viewed too negatively for it to succeed. Following the stunt, the Xano drone was never seen again. One of the most successful types of campaigns are those that promise to improve everyday life. That was the case with Fontis, which had launched on Indiegogo in 2016. Named after the Roman god of wells and springs, it claimed to be the world's first self-filling water bottle. The device purportedly turned moisture from the air into drinking water. That meant it was functional even in the desert. It also had a lower chamber to remineralize harvested water. Not only did this seem essential for travel, but they promised those who pledged at least $165 their very own. It proved a success, raising well over $300,000 for 1,400 backers. Yet, even from the start, there was cause for concern. The creators note they hadn't yet created a functional prototype, and its science seemed dubious. The description explains that air is first run through a filter into the chambers. Then, a series of smaller solar-powered coolers bring out and condense the moisture. This results in water, which drips into the main body. However, YouTuber EVblog uploaded a video investigating the process.
So now we can actually do a calculation for 1 hour. Now they claim to be able to produce 1 litre of water in 150 minutes in a 90% humidity environment at 40 degrees Celsius, okay?
Using basic thermodynamics as well as the company's own numbers, he found it was scientifically impossible. It was so egregious that he concluded they likely fabricated the data. In response, Fontis issued a statement to their supporters. The team admitted the graphics were fictitious and merely for illustrative purposes. They then said the science was incomplete as their true mechanisms were confidential. In the end, the team not only kept support but received help from the Austrian government, who offered to fund the second phase of development. But as the months went by and there seemed to be no progress, that patience waned. Every month, the backers were given new excuses as to why there was no working prototypes. That included a post in September claiming they'd integrated graphene into the design. This was in spite of the material costing twice the price of gold at the time. Months later, they finally unveiled the first actual photo of the prototype. It had no resemblance to the advertised design, and as many pointed out, functioned like a dehumidifier. The deadline of April 2017 came and went as it remained in the concept stage. In May, the team revealed the bottle's new design, but the more attentive noticed new fine print. Drinking distilled water for longer periods of time is not recommended. Gradually, updates became infrequent, with the final post coming in August of 2018. Here, Fontis wrote that at the request of new investors, it was being scrutinized by a third party. Revealingly, the post ends with a sentence, "The fate of this project seems to be out of our hands now, and we can only hope for a positive outcome soon." It seems that the writing was on the wall for the team. because just a month later, Fontis went bankrupt. This development received little to no attention. It seems the Austrian government was desperate to sweep it under the rug, embarrassed to have ever invested. Immediately, all references to the project were removed from their site. Fontis' creator also deleted his account and left without a trace. It's unknown if he had intentionally crafted a scam, but the product was a complete hoax and fundamentally impossible. Unfortunately, no one would be held accountable, with his once supporters yet to see any recourse. Named after the Greek god of the sea, Triton set out to change swimming forever. They designed artificial gills that allowed humans to breathe underwater. This was achieved with a respirator that gave the user oxygen by biting. It was even said to last upwards of 45 minutes. With such a promise, the $299 pre-order seemed like a steal. The cheapest options quickly sold out as the campaign exploded. Within weeks, the project amassed nearly $1 million, but not everyone was convinced. The fundraiser appeared out of nowhere and just seemed too good to be true. This was a concept that had eluded both the world's top scientists and military contractors. If such an advancement was made, Triton would have easily found investors themselves. This suspicion was felt within Gear Junkie, an outlet about outdoor gear. On March 25, 2016, the site published an article questioning Triton's legitimacy that included opinions by experts who agreed the product was impossible. Their issues lied in three major points. Firstly, it needed to produce 90 liters of water per minute to produce enough air to breathe. That necessitated far greater power than the model was capable of. Similarly, the system lacked a reservoir to hold the compressed air. And finally, the device had no metering. You see, below 15 feet, pure oxygen becomes poisonous. This is addressed in scuba gear through a regulator that mixes it with other gases. Not having this made the gills an extreme safety risk for consumers, but it was unimaginable to fulfill any of those mechanisms into such a small device. When reached for comment, Triton declined to respond, but Indiegogo initiated an investigation after being sent the article. On March 31st, they told Gear Junkie the project was under internal review. Within 24 hours, Triton shut down their page willfully and refunded all the proceeds. However, they disputed the product being a scam. The team apologized for being secretive as it was to protect proprietary technology. They sought to fix the issue by launching another more honest campaign that included revealing the new aspect to the design, that it was using liquid oxygen. Unfortunately, this explanation wouldn't suffice either. Liquid oxygen is cryogenic and must be stored at extremely low temperatures. Once again, this was infeasible given the design and nature of snorkeling. Beyond that, the volume could only supply divers with 1 or 2 breaths, a far cry from artificial gills. Ultimately, Triton did little to actually address their product being literally impossible. Yet somehow the campaign managed to raise another $500,000. For months, it seemed like Triton would get away with their scheme. But that changed in June when the second fundraiser was abruptly shut down. As it turns out, Indiegogo had continued looking into the project and decided to ban it for good. The following message was then sent to backers. Over a month ago, our Trust and Safety team reached out to the Triton team in response to numerous questions from our community surrounding the claims made in their most recent campaign. Despite our repeated requests to substantiate these claims, the Triton team have not been able to comply. The money was returned as Triton ultimately left empty-handed. They never made another statement on the matter, instead hoping to be forgotten. The project's website and social media accounts quickly disappeared. Not long after, so did the online presence of their individual team members. Interestingly, Indiegogo's decision to act may not have been fully self-motivated. Days after the relaunch, a page was started on their site to denounce the gills as a scam. It was updated after the ban with insight on the project's end. We organized a small group of volunteers here in San Francisco Bay Area to put pressure on Indiegogo. My company provides litigation for a number of prominent local law firms, including ones that specialize in diving and marine-related litigation. We called in some favors to get them to participate with us so that they would be taken seriously. We had a large package of documents with supporting legal materials delivered by certified mail to the Vice President and General Counsel of Indiegogo. We also obtained the support and assistance of a California legislative assemblyman who expressed his willingness to spearhead an investigation if the outcome, indeed, was misappropriation of funds from innocent contributors. It seems the crowdfunding site had their hand forced by threats of legal action. Given their general inaction towards other stunts, it proved worthwhile, because thankfully in this story their due diligence was done and no one was hurt. It's become a bit of a stereotype that people will argue about anything and everything on Twitter, with one of the most popular subjects for debate being politics. In the years 2016 to 2020, battles between supporters of then-President Donald Trump and those who hated him were particularly fierce. One common talking point used by anti-Trump activists was that all of their opponents were racist white people. Thus, anytime a person of color spoke out in favor of the president, it was cause for celebration amongst his supporters. And that is exactly what happened on October 27, 2018, when a Twitter user with the handle Chickpeas, real name Karen, posted an image of herself wearing a MAGA hat with the caption, "I will not hide any longer. The left has made us feel as if us black Republicans should hide, but not anymore." The tweet quickly went viral as the replies were flooded with conservatives expressing their gratitude toward the young woman for speaking out. Predictably, there were also people on the left criticizing her. While this attention was clearly what she was hoping for, it seemed as though not all of it was contained to the internet. Merely a day later, Karen made a follow-up post stating that her parents had completely cut her off financially due to her political beliefs. She even later uploaded screenshots of a text conversation she had allegedly had with her mother, apparently also kicking her daughter out of the house and completely disowning her. Because of this, she created a GoFundMe campaign in order to raise funds. While the page has since been deleted and no archives can be found, there was certainly no shortage of people willing to give her their money. But as Karen rapidly gained support and sympathy from her new right-wing fan base, she was just as quick to pull the rug out from under them. Merely 24 hours after starting her GoFundMe campaign, she posted a tweet with a completely different tone than she had been expressing previously. "Trump is a racist, homophobic, transphobic, bigot, and you think my black ass would support that rotting carrot? Ridiculous. Any black person can put up that ugly ass hat and say #MAGA and you'll all instantly be up their ass because you want to prove so hard you're not racist." With this, the reactions from the political parties on Twitter completely flipped. Those on the left praised Karen for her prank, while those on the right were furious that they had been duped out of their money. The young woman seemed to have no remorse for what she had done though, publicly boasting about her expensive purchases. Now it should be noted that it's unclear exactly how much money Karen raised and more importantly, how much she kept. As previously stated, the GoFundMe was deleted before it could be properly archived, so the best source for this information is her recollection after the fact. It certainly doesn't help that various sources who claim to have spoken with Karen offer wildly different answers. Some say she raised roughly $150,000, while others state that it was closer to just $200,000, which she refunded immediately. Considering the fact that she is not currently under investigation for mass fraud, the latter explanation does seem more likely. Surprisingly though, this is only the first of many off-the-wall Twitter users that try to collect money. Social media profiles being hacked by malicious third parties in order to promote scams to their unsuspecting followers is nothing new. A constant battle is raging for web developers to beef up their security faster than these pirates can find loopholes to exploit. And in 2020, one hacker was able to open a backdoor so wide that it shook the entire global economy. It all started on July 15th, 2020, when a tweet was posted to Elon Musk's account which read, "I'm feeling generous because of COVID-19. I'll double any BTC payments sent to my BTC address for the next hour. Good luck and stay safe out there." Unsurprisingly, many people were skeptical about this promise. However, the fact that the billionaire had previously been very outspoken about his interest in cryptocurrency was enough to convince a subsection of onlookers that this was legitimate, and thus they began sending their bitcoins to the address listed. It most likely goes without saying that this tweet was not, in fact, written by the current owner of X. Seeing the success of their scheme, the hackers began targeting other high-profile Twitter accounts, including Bill Gates, Jeff Bezos, Apple, and even Barack Obama, all of whom posting in nearly identical messages. To date, this was the largest cyber attack Twitter has ever experienced, with dozens of incredibly influential people being victimized. Twitter's security team immediately went into crisis mode, locking down the affected accounts and limiting activity for all verified users while desperately searching for how this could have happened. They soon claimed to have discovered what they described as a coordinated social engineering attack by people who successfully targeted some of their employees with access to internal systems and tools. As this was happening, the hijackers seemed to be reveling in the pandemonium they were causing. Images were spread online, reportedly by the perpetrators, showing a screenshot of Twitter's interior control systems. They even bragged to news outlets about how they had pulled it off, even reportedly telling one source that they had bribed a Twitter employee in order to be let in. Whatever had happened, it seemed as though Twitter's programmers were able to close the hole that the hackers had entered through later that day, but not before a significant amount of chaos and confusion had been spread, not to mention the money lost by those who fell for the scam tweets. Professionals in the cybersecurity space urged Twitter to launch an investigation into the extent of the damage. Considering how many important political figures were hacked, it wasn't out of the question that their private messages had been compromised. But it seemed as though the hackers were only interested in financial gain and a little bit of trolling. With all the attention placed on this story, it wouldn't be long until police tracked down the suspect. Merely a couple weeks later, a 17-year-old was arrested in Tampa, Florida, under suspicion of masterminding the entire operation. At first, authorities did not publicly disclose his identity since he was still considered a minor. However, that soon changed as the charges began stacking up. He stood accused of communications fraud, fraudulent use of personal information, and organized fraud. This was enough for prosecutors to successfully argue that he should be tried as an adult. The young man's name was publicly revealed as Graham Ivan Clark, and he pleaded not guilty to the charges held against him. Two other accomplices were also arrested, Nima Fazeli of Orlando, Florida, and Mason Shepard of the UK. In total, investigators estimated that the group scammed Twitter users out of over $100,000 worth of cryptocurrency. Clark was eventually sentenced to serve 3 years in prison, followed by an additional 3 years of probation. While this was just one of thousands of incidents of Twitter accounts being hijacked to promote scams, this incident was undoubtedly the most high-profile cyber attack in the social media site's history. Joshua Collins was a truck driver living in Washington who in the 2010s was becoming increasingly disillusioned with the state of American politics. As the years had gone on, he had shifted further and further to the left until he eventually began identifying himself as a socialist. Collins posted frequently about his views on sites like Twitter and Instagram, earning him a fairly sizable fan base. And after being inspired by the grassroots campaigns of people like Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez in 2018, he believed he could change the world. In 2019, Washington Congressman Denny Heck announced that he would not be running for re-election, opening up an opportunity for a potential newcomer to take his place. Joshua quickly leapt at the chance, opting to use his social media presence to bolster his chances of winning. Not only did he call upon his already established Twitter and Instagram followings to spread the word, but he also started a TikTok account named Joshua for Congress in order to campaign even further. It wasn't long until people began taking notice of what Collins was doing, gaining him hundreds of thousands of new eyes on his run. He eventually started a Discord server for his most dedicated supporters, asking them to treat it as sort of a digital campaign office. Not only that, but he also started receiving monetary donations from his fanbase. It was around this time that the mainstream media took notice of what Joshua was doing. Multiple news outlets reached out, telling the story of the socialist truck driver taking the world by storm with his independent run for office. And Collins seemed to lavish in the newfound attention, happily accepting interview requests from anyone who asked. This proved to be a double-edged sword though. As mainstream publications began reporting on it, many people voiced their confusion about Joshua's campaign. Despite his apparent desire to spread his message and get elected, people in the Washington area claimed they had never heard of him before. He had apparently not been canvassing door to door to court potential voters, nor had he distributed yard signs or even put up flyers. 100% of his run for Congress had been done online. This led many to wonder where the money he had raised, which amounted to around $250,000, had gone. People on Twitter began digging through the records in order to answer that question. From what they found, it seemed as though over 60% of donations had gone toward paying staff, mainly consisting of Joshua's friends and family. Even Colin's wife, Zelza Basie, had been given over $10 grand for her role as campaign manager. To make things even more interesting, Joshua spent enough to make his campaign the 4th most expensive in the entire race. The subject of Joshua's campaign promises was also thrown into question. Many of his policies were pretty standard for people on the political left, such as wanting to stop climate change and provide universal healthcare for all Americans. On the other hand, some of his goals seemed practically impossible. For instance, Joshua wanted to completely abolish government institutions such as ICE and the CIA, offering very little explanation of how he would go about doing this. Leftist content creators such as Destiny criticized him live on stream, putting more pressure on the independent candidate than he had ever faced thus far.
Wait, so I'm actually curious. Are you just running as like a meme for Twitter, or what is the...
No, I'm running on a radical platform, and I'm working to actually radicalize discourse.
So the radical discourse is don't vote in the election, and the radical platform is the Green New Deal and Medicare for All, something proposed by AOC and something proposed by Bernie Sanders.
Well, I mean...
The stress appeared too much to handle, and Joshua deleted his Twitter and TikTok accounts in May of 2020. This caused quite a stir among both his supporters and detractors as they wondered if this meant he was dropping out of the race. A campaign staffer soon posted a tweet thread in order to assure the public that things were fine behind the scenes. Apparently, Joshua had simply gone dark in order to stop the constant notifications on his phone, so he could get some sleep, and his name would still be appearing on the ballot. This explanation only served to confuse people further. If Colin's entire run for Congress was being done entirely through social media, why would he delete the most powerful tools in his arsenal so close to Election Day, when the simpler solution to his problem was to just turn off notifications for a few hours? It was at this point that even his most fervent supporters began to feel uneasy about their candidate's chances of winning. When the election finally came, onlookers waited to see if Joshua's bizarre strategy had worked. But as the results started being publicized, things seemed to be worse than even his harshest critics could have predicted. Joshua Collins received only 969 votes, making him the least popular candidate in the race. One user on Twitter pointed out that even Richard Boyce, who had died several months prior, received a larger percentage of votes than Joshua. Reactions in the aftermath of this disastrous loss, while mixed, were largely negative. While many people accused Collins of outright scamming his fans, others tried to paint him as a naive idealist who simply got in over his head. Joshua later reactivated his Twitter account in order to conduct a post-mortem on his campaign in the form of a thread. He admitted that the stress of running for office had gone to his head, and that he realized too late that he was not cut out to be a public figure. He claimed that, while he didn't regret how much he had paid his staffers, he had spent his budget poorly. The disaster that was Joshua for Congress is now barely remembered as a blip in the annals of American politics, and is mainly brought up as a joke by those who were there to witness it. Aruzan, better known as Uwu Cute Single, is a 17-year-old Roblox YouTuber and TikToker from Kazakhstan. Aru got her start as a content creator in March of 2021 by posting videos in her native language. These were all short Roblox memes that were unnoticed for the most part, with occasional success. However, things kicked off for her months after she started posting content to YouTube in July, as she rapidly grew to 115,000 subscribers by March of 2022. And less than a half a year later, she hit the 1 million sub mark. Everything seemed to be on the up and up for the young creator, but not everyone enjoyed the content she was producing. Aru's reputation within the Roblox community was less than favorable, as most viewers labeled her videos as cringe and were put off by them. But a much darker side of Uwu Cute Single would soon come out, which earned her the infamous title of one of Roblox's most unanimously hated YouTubers. It wouldn't be long until Aruzon started getting called out by many people in the community. This all started in January of 2023, when a Roblox trading news network account made a post accusing the young creator of scamming her fans. Popular Roblox YouTuber Uwu Cute Single, with over 3 million subscribers, has begun advertising Bloxflip, the Roblox gambling website, to her audience of children within the age range of around 8 to 13 years old. These slight advertisements have been featured in multiple videos of hers. According to their website, Bloxflip is the #1 social casino for wagering Robux, where players can gamble in-game currency, limited in-game items, or even real money. Understandably, the public was upset that Aru was promoting such a predatory site to her impressionable audience. Her actions were deemed morally reprehensible and illegal by many onlookers. On most gambling sites, users must be at least 21 years old to gain access, and as previously mentioned, most of Aru's fans are extremely young. But it's worth noting that Bloxflip themselves have publicly stated that they are a, quote, completely legal social casino. Yet, in the eyes of the Roblox YouTuber's critics, she was promoting underage gambling, and as can probably be expected, this resulted in Aruzon catching a lot of flack for this from the online community. That being said, others expressed their belief that she was not entirely at fault, since Bloxflip is notoriously known for hiring many young and naive influencers to promote their questionable business. Uwu Cute Single is no exception, as she was 16 when she first advertised the website. While there were some who chose to forgive her on these grounds, many more felt that she should have done her due diligence and properly researched the people she was working with. Nonetheless, when she was first exposed, she decided to double down and post a tweet claiming that Bloxflip wasn't a gambling site, a statement that made many believe the situation was heading into scam territory. At this time, she was also confronted by fellow Roblox creator Creekcraft, who contacted the YouTuber in Twitter DMs and asked her a few questions about the situation. She then replied, "I've heard a lot about Bloxflip ads from friends, or from Robloxers on TikTok who inserted small excerpts of Bloxflip ads. After that I applied and I was instantly accepted. No one forced me to sign anything, and there was no contracts as such." She also attached a screenshot to this message with a statement from Bloxflip's site that says, "We are not a gambling service. We do not take or place illegal bets, and we do not recommend or encourage illegal gambling." This claim comes down to a game of semantics of regulators' definition for non-currency gambling, rather than the fact that the site allowed you to gamble on things that had monetary value, even if it wasn't federally regulated. Aru ended her message to Creek by saying, "All I want to say is that this situation is funny and I really enjoy this attention around me. I kinda love my haters." Aruzon seemingly ignored Creek's third question, where he asked her about how much she was paid for the sponsorship, as she didn't say how much they compensated her. Regardless, once everything came crashing down, she would upload several apologies. The influencer first made a short where she tried to appeal to emotions by claiming she wanted to help people with the money earned from the Bloxflip ads. Aru even showed a video of starving African children she was supposedly helping. The thing is, this footage she used didn't even belong to her. Instead, it was taken from a small charity page that didn't appear to have any relation to her account. As viewers came to this realization, Aruzon understood that her attempted apology had failed. She tried again a few days later with a more conventional approach. Aru uploaded a short where she apologized for promoting Bloxflip, but she had no luck with this one either. The audience quickly pointed out that it featured a sponsorship for the site despite the fact that she claimed to be sorry for ever working with them. This was obvious because it included a thank you message that said, "Thank you Bloxflip for sponsoring this video." At this point, the alleged scammer's reputation seemed irreparably tarnished, as the public concluded that she couldn't provide a sincere apology. But when everyone thought the situation couldn't get worse, it did. Months after the initial controversy, on July 30th, Aruzan uploaded a video titled "We Need to Talk." Here, Aruz said that she had stopped promoting Bloxflip and apologized for glorifying gambling in the first place.
So, y'all probably remember a time when I promoted a gambling site. I stopped. Maybe you didn't even check my YouTube channel vids. And maybe I need to say this again, but I'm sorry for promoting gambling. So guys, there is no reason to hate me for that.
The apology was widely panned, with 78,000 dislikes and an infinite amount of hate comments. Aruz's attitude was generally seen as disingenuous, and viewers weren't buying it. At this moment, Aruzan had amassed sufficient infamy to attract the attention of Steak and PackGod, two YouTubers who often collaborate and are best known for roasting other creators. On August 4th, Steak released a video titled "The End of Uwu Cute Single," where he took shots at Aruz's practices and enticed viewers to like the video by stating that he would have PackGod roast the disgraced Roblox creator if he hit 1,000 likes. Unsurprisingly, the video crushed the goal and reached over 15,000 thumbs up. The next day, Steak uploaded the promised follow-up, PackGod vs Uwu Cute Single. Here, Steak joined a call with Aru and added someone who identified himself as Harold shortly after. However, this was actually PackGod, who entered the Discord undercover as an 18-year-old British man. Harold claimed he got hooked on Bloxflip, developed a gambling addiction, and lost all his money. Eventually, Pack dropped the act and began hurling insults at his target. After this, the three creators spoke behind the scenes for an hour and settled the drama. They convinced her to take down the videos where she promoted the offending site, and she also told them that she would donate the money she had earned from the sponsorships. The YouTuber would then make a community post where she would say her piece on the situation one final time. I'm not gonna make any excuses why I did it, because there are no excuses for it. I'm disappointed at myself. I'm an idiot for promoting illegal sites to kids. I'm sorry if I offended, hurt, or disappointed anyone with all of this. I promise to be better, and I will be better. Thank you. The reception to this statement was divisive, to say the least. Many continued to hate the young video maker, while others viewed this as her first genuine apology and accepted it. Since then, it appears Aruzan hasn't engaged in any more questionable acts, and it seems as though she has thoroughly learned her lesson. Clown Chow, real name unknown, is a 15-year-old American Roblox YouTuber and TikToker who got started in 2022. He rapidly amassed a following of millions across both sites with only a few months of posting content. Like Uwu Cute Single, Chow created short Roblox videos that gained hundreds of thousands or even millions of views per upload. Clown Chow's career had reached heights he likely never thought it would, but behind the scenes, a scheme was brewing. While this kind of content attracted many critics, it also brought a large and easily exploitable audience of children, which is what outside forces hope to capitalize on. Everything started when the Roblox creator received an enticing email which read, "Act now, we want to sponsor your channel. High payout per post. Ending soon." The email then stated, "Hi, this is CEO Mert James from Arcade Prizes Company. This company helped create/worked with some of the companies you may know listed below. The reason for the email today is something just came up. It is the most suitable sponsorship for your channel. It is a product and website all about the game/games you play in your videos. What does the product do? It is a website all about Roblox, Minecraft, and Fortnite where users can enter to win cool prizes and read about anything gaming related. It is really cool stuff. It's super fun stuff. Everyone has a laugh and a really great time. Simply by promoting this product/gaming site for 10 seconds on each and every video, we ensure you will earn upwards of $200 to $1,400 per post, upfront before you even film the video itself." James ended the email with the intriguing line, "Once you start working with us, you will feel and become $1 million." As Clown was only 15, an offer like this was probably hard to resist, so they took the opportunity. James was paying Clown to pin comments on all their shorts with a dubious link that would send viewers to a survey they could complete to obtain a $100 Roblox gift card. Of course, many noticed that this website wasn't exactly as advertised. When users click the link, they would be asked to do multiple surveys until eventually finishing them all. Once this was complete, the page would ask them for their email. If a user were to provide it to them, they would be bombarded with endless scam messages. When this was uncovered, Clown began to face backlash from the community and was condemned for his actions. Even apart from scams, Chow was criticized for several other activities which some onlookers took objection to. For starters, he would frequently post shorts where he asked viewers to like and subscribe if they supported Jesus and comment "God is amazing" or other religious sentiments if they hated the devil. When he noticed that this actually worked in increasing his engagement, Clown would make another similar video to bait for interactions where he claimed that his sister had died. As it turns out, the woman he talked about in this upload wasn't his sister at all, and was instead another Roblox YouTuber named Rebooted Poppy. The icing on the cake was that she was also alive and well. This left the audience with a sour taste in their mouths, but they couldn't have predicted what would come next. In a now deleted TikTok, Clown claimed to have been the victim of a kidnapping, accompanied by footage purporting to show the Roblox YouTuber trapped in the back of a van before fleeing into the woods. People were quick to point out how odd and inconsistent this situation was. Their main argument against its legitimacy was that one's first thought when in a situation like this would likely be to contact the authorities for help, not film a TikTok. They also mentioned how strange it was that Chow had made a Roblox video of himself dancing with his supposed kidnapper. Once this incident was exposed as fake by other TikTokers, Clown's image sank even further than ever before. But it would somehow sink even lower not long afterward, as an anonymous individual soon came forward with damning evidence against Clown. This accuser claimed that they were one of the influencer's former friends, and released various screenshots of inappropriate Discord messages that Clown had sent them. In these images, the Robloxer appeared to tell the alleged victim that he owned and sold explicit photographs of minors. These screenshots also seemed to show Clown sending the disturbing pictures and videos to his ex-friend. On September 21st, months after Chow was first exposed, his channel was terminated for violating YouTube's terms of service policies. Despite this, no legal actions have been filed for the severe crimes he was accused of. Since then, Clown Chow has been absent from the internet with no signs of a return anytime soon. Island, or Mert James as he calls himself, is yet another Roblox YouTuber who joined the platform on November 13th, 2018, and garnered 1.19 million subscribers since the start of his content creation journey. But unlike the previous two creators, James never made any proper content. Instead, his videos were all fake giveaways and scams, which was his channel's sole focus throughout his time on the platform. James would upload videos with titles like, "Don't tell anyone about this working Robux glitch. This is actually insane. How to get free Robux." Or we can't forget, "This secret promo code gives you Robux. How to get Robux." Unfortunately, kids would fall hook, line, and sinker for these scams and give the YouTuber their private details for him to do with as he pleased. But this wasn't enough to satisfy the money-crazed degenerates, so he began making community tab posts enticing young gamers to take surveys to win Robux. If one were to fill out the survey, the website would prompt them to complete 2 offers to get their hard-earned prize, and this is where the real scam lay. For instance, one offer read, "Superfuel is an all-natural energy drink. Enjoy a free sample kit of 4 flavors today. Just pay shipping." The shipping charge was $8, and once it was paid for, the site's owner could easily charge the victim's card as many times as they wanted. As it turned out, James was paying other Robloxers, including the previously discussed Clown Chow, to promote the websites. To make matters worse, the prolific scammer made multiple alt accounts to push the con further on the Island channel. Many pointed out that the most outlandish part about this was that James went through all this effort only to get paid $1 per survey. However, this enterprise would not last forever, and the scheme ultimately backfired on him. On August 29th, YouTube would bring down the ban hammer and terminate James' channel, thus putting an end to his reign of scams. In December of 2020, a Roblox hacker group named the Bun Bun Girls started making the rounds online, and swiftly earned themselves a level of notoriety unlike any other. It kicked off with a video posted on the 16th, in which the uploader claimed that the Bun Bun Girls had a malevolent scheme up their sleeves. They reportedly planned to take over the Roblox website and go to war with the Bacon Army, a faction of players who all use the default male skin in the game. The creator of the video also noted that this could all be a hoax since most Bun Bun girls were mobile players, and more importantly, they mentioned that the gang planned their attacks in French to avoid suspicion. Many onlookers did not view this upload as a credible threat, partly due to the fact that the hacker group in question had a mixed reputation within the community. A quick look into the Roblox wiki page reads, "Many people say the Bun Bun girls are bad, but the media also says that the Bun Bun girls only hack scammers and rule breakers. Roblox media says that it's best to take an alternate account to servers in which they are most active, or just don't play them at all. Bun Bun girls are known to hack IP addresses and release them. It is best to bring a VPN and use an alt when playing those games." Allegedly, the gang's base of operation was on their Discord server, where they'd lure in potential victims through their Roblox games. Once they attracted their prey through promises of free Robux and other prizes, the girls would reportedly socially engineer users and engage in cookie logging. This practice is defined as a way for software to capture cookies on a browser and send them to a server for authentication. While this can be used positively, it can also be easily exploited by malicious actors and is a massive issue on Roblox. But as it would turn out, the Bun Bun girls may not have been the elite hacker team they claim to be. On December 20th, the day that the group were supposed to wage their battle against the Bacon Army, YouTuber Real Roses Are Red uploaded a video where she claimed to expose them as frauds. She joined servers that the girls had planned to attack, and demonstrated that her account had not been compromised despite the fact that members of the gang were visibly present. With this, any fear that Roblox players may have had towards the Bun Bun girls completely vanished. However, they weren't going down without a fight. A month later, the group came back with a vengeance and alleged that they had hacked the YouTube account of a prominent Roblox creator named Burr. Once again, Roses stepped in to debunk this claim.
I found out that he got his account back 10 minutes later. We're good. My channel did get hacked, but I dream speed ran the security check, reset my cookies, signed out on other devices, and changed my password.
But the girls remained determined to prove themselves as authentic hackers, and announced their plans to go after other YouTubers for various reasons. To mention a few, they wanted to hack Flamingo for allegedly being racist, Sharkblocks for slander, Some Ordinary Gamers for getting them banned, and Roses for calling them fake. At this point, the Bun Bun girls also took responsibility for hacking Kira Berry, another Robloxer. When she got her channel back though, Kira denied that the group had any involvement. The gang even claimed that Roblox was suing them for targeting these people. They also mentioned they had their Roblox and Discord accounts banned. They tried sharing a picture of a court summons they had received as proof of this, but it was quickly discovered that the photo had simply been taken from Google Images. This is when their credibility was completely shattered. Even though they attempted to keep their former reputation alive, nobody in the Roblox community took the Bun Bun girls seriously afterward. The once infamous hacking group was now viewed as nothing more than a bunch of young tryhards desperately seeking clout. After trying and failing to make people fear them again, the girls eventually fled the internet, never to be seen again. Quanta Computer is a Taiwanese manufacturer that produces electronic hardware. The company is quite prolific, with its customers including Apple, Facebook, and Sony. Quanta also supplies data centers to services like Amazon, Facebook, and Google. To make a long story short, they work with nearly every recognizable name in technology. Because of this, they're a prime target for bad actors looking to fleece their customers. That takes us to a man named Valdas Remauskas. Born and raised in Lithuania, the 44-year-old didn't seem out of the ordinary. He'd been married for 2 decades and had a long work history. That included at one point running his own construction business. Because of this, one wouldn't expect him to resort to a life of crime. Yet in 2013, that's exactly what he did. That spring, he realized how many companies relied on Quanta Computer, and saw it as an opportunity to make a lot of money. With the help of a few associates, he devised a plot to impersonate the manufacturer. The first step was collecting enough information to accurately imitate their target. Individuals began calling Quanta's customer service to glean their internal structure. This meant details like the name and contacts of key employees. That was then used to send phishing emails, which quickly gave them access to the company's email system. It provided a treasure trove of information about the business. The team now had copies of their documents which could be recreated effortlessly, as well as their long list of customers. Meanwhile, the con man began prepping for the next phase of the plan. For their invoices to pass scrutiny, the account had to appear connected with the company. He resolved this by having a second Quanta computer incorporated in Latvia. It was registered with capital of exactly €1 by a man named Vladimir A. Vladimir then sold it to Valdez 10 days later, who used it to create a bank account in the country. With the pieces in place, it was finally time to begin their heist. Out of all the different names Quanta was involved with, they decided on Google as their first target. The fraudsters started by creating emails similar to the ones they'd broken into. These accounts sent invoices with wiring instructions for supposed unpaid goods and services. Naturally, the request was scrutinized by Google, but the crew accounted for this by taking steps to make the scheme even more convincing. They fabricated additional documents such as contracts and letters. The former had signatures from company executives forged onto them. The latter was embossed with fake corporate seals. It was this that ultimately let them succeed in deceiving the megacorp. And with a simple phone call, Google changed the information on file to their fake account. In total, they were sent over $23 million. It took months for Google to notice they'd been bamboozled, only reporting the theft to authorities in 2014. They notified Latvian police, who questioned Valdez under suspicion of fraud. The company pursued a civil remedy, forcing him to appear in court. Though he tried his best to lie, it was quickly ruled that the money was indeed stolen and had to be returned. The $23 million was frozen and eventually sent back to Google. And with that, one would expect this to be the end of the scheme. But surprisingly, in spite of the verdict, the scammers only became more bold, going on to perform an even larger stunt worth hundreds of millions of dollars. Despite being caught, the European swindler was not ready to give up his scheme. The following year, in 2015, Valdez traveled to Cyprus in order to create another bank account. He was now aware that many multi-million-dollar transactions would arouse suspicion. To quell them, he showed statements from the first scam to verify the company's business dealings. Then the team got to work forging a new set of invoices, contracts, and letters. The criminals decided their next victim should be the social media company Facebook. They repeated the steps outlined earlier, now netting $26 million. But there was a new level to this plan. Because the initial heist was confiscated so quickly, they needed a way to ensure they could keep the money. Their solution was to wire the funds to correspondents across the world. This included banks in Slovakia, Lithuania, Hungary, and Hong Kong. Even if caught, it now required the assistance of several countries to retrieve the cash. Once the money was fully dispersed, the men tried for a larger jackpot. They aimed to get nearly 3 times the amount they did before. $74 million. This placed their total theft from Facebook at $100 million. The money was sent, but didn't make it nearly as far. The large sum was heavily scrutinized, leading Facebook to realize they'd been defrauded. The conglomerate was quickly able to reverse the second transaction, but as for the first, it was too late. Any chance of retrieving those funds required direct intervention from the United States government. As several of their accounts were frozen, Valdez read the writing on the wall. He attempted to distance himself by selling Quanta Computer, but this was in vain. In March of 2017, the middle-aged man was arrested upon returning to Lithuania. The U.S. Justice Department found enough evidence to indict him for wire fraud and money laundering. 4 months later, it was formally ruled that he'd be extradited to the United States. The indictment doesn't specify which companies were involved, referring to them as Victim 1 and 2. However, their identities were leaked to the press, likely due to being so high profile. The world became enamored at the idea of such massive corporations being scammed. This led to some misinterpretations, such as the headline, "Man stole $122 million from Facebook and Google by simply sending them random bills which they paid." While the idea of a Robin Hood figure is appealing, the scheme was clearly more sophisticated. In fact, so much so that in spite of his arrest, the plot at large was still successful. Valdez was ordered to pay restitution of $26.4 million, the exact amount of their initial theft from Facebook. This is because it was never recovered, with the majority being lost as the money hadn't been frozen in time. As mentioned before, Valdez had no priors and was otherwise an upstanding citizen. This begs the question of what led him to a life of crime. Well, as it turns out, the answer was quite tragic. Throughout their marriage, he and his wife Olga attempted to conceive children, but despite their efforts, they never succeeded. The couple realized their only option was vitro fertilization, which they couldn't afford. This led Valdez to fall into a deep bout of depression. He began binge drinking to the point of being blackout drunk. His wife even recalled that in this state, he often didn't recognize her. The addiction began in 2013, the exact time as their scheme. Upon pulling off the heist, Valdez started to get his life back on track. In early 2017, he told Olga he was going to seek help from a doctor to end his addiction, admitting that he couldn't handle it himself. Then they planned to finally do vitro fertilization. Unfortunately, soon after, the would-be father was detained. While Valdez is often considered the ringleader, it's not actually clear if that was the case. The prosecutors themselves speculated he may have been acting under someone else's direction. Despite obtaining millions, he personally kept only $100,000 of the cash. So there appeared to be co-conspirators who outranked him in the operation, and he was merely a patsy. His lawyer pointed out, they don't allege he created this conspiracy. They don't allege he brought the technical computer knowledge to execute it. They don't even allege he translated documents from Lithuanian to English. They admit of all the money lost, it's about $100,000 that he got away with. He went on to argue that his client had an easily replaceable role. He was brought on for his EU membership, which allowed him to open several bank accounts. Valdez even claimed not to be privy to the entire scheme. In response to where the money went, he stated, "I'm not 100% sure because I was asked to open bank accounts. After that, I did not do anything." But this is hard to take at face value given his contradictory statements. Upon arrest, the man feigned ignorance. Through his lawyer, he admitted to owning the fake company, but said it was for legitimate purposes. He implied that Quanta Computer was to be developed into a construction business. It wasn't until February of 2019 that the con man pled guilty, agreeing to forfeit $49.7 million. He was sentenced to 5 years behind bars, as well as 2 years of supervised release. Before learning his fate, he said, "Your Honor, I regret that I committed this crime, and I can promise you it will be the first and last time I find myself in a courtroom. I very much want to return back to my native country and to hug my relatives that I have not seen for a very long time." Part of the reason behind Valdez's confession may have been due to family matters back at home. Ever since being deported, his elderly mother's health started to seriously decline. The 73-year-old began to suffer from serious nervous system disorders, which required regular visits to the hospital. Because of this, Olga had to take care of her and help with farming. This became especially stressful when in December of 2018, her own mother passed away. In addition to his mother, she now had to take care of her father. Needless to say, there was immense pressure for the man to return home and comfort his loved ones. To this day, no one else has been charged for their involvement, but it can be inferred the others likely went on to perform similar heists. In 2019, the FBI officially termed the scam as business email compromise. They called BEC one of the most financially damaging online crimes, being used to steal over $26 billion worldwide. The first recorded incident was likely Valdez, taking place in October of 2013. And ever since, there's been a massive increase in companies falling victim for these schemes. From 2016 to 2019 alone, there were over 160,000 reported cases. So it seems likely his co-conspirators didn't stop and instead refined their technique over time. It remains to be seen if they ever will be caught, though last August, the docket for the Facebook case was updated to state the funds had finally been restored. The company at the center of this, Quanta Computer, was silent throughout the ordeal. Their spokeswoman made just one statement: "We did not suffer from any financial harm from this incident." Unfortunately for them, months after the sentencing, they fell victim to yet another cybercrime. This time, hackers infiltrated their network and obtained confidential documents from their customers. This led Quanta and Apple to be blackmailed for over $50 million. But that's a story for another day.